Face this way. Do you need to move? No, come on, please.
Hey guys, what's up on Fox 5 Live? You are watching this shot. It looks like inside a gym. This is Kevin Durant Day. You guys know him as the NBA star and MVP. He's back in his hometown, Seat Pleasant, in Prince George's County, Maryland. And he's going to be sort of ending the festivities of the day. It was Kevin Durant Day, a big celebration and parade in honor of Kevin Durant here locally in Prince George's County, where he's from. So the native comes back regularly and celebrates his community and hometown. And today the community is celebrating him, guys. And he's slated to make a little statement here, have a little press conference, I guess, or a speech with these kids. And that's what's going on today. This is live from Maryland in Prince George's. And earlier today at like 10 a.m., they started this parade. We had coverage of it on our morning show, and they were sort of traipsing down the street, lots of cars, lots of media, really exciting stuff. Now I think they're going to be talking to these kids at this camp. But yeah, so very own Prince George's own Kevin Durant, guys. He's back in town. Stay with us. You can watch this coverage live. We're going to be on for the afternoon, bringing you live news and anything that's breaking internationally, nationally, wherever it is. So stay with us here, and you're going to get to see Kevin Durant as this celebration day continues for the NBA star.
There's so many groupies here. Huh? Kid, I'll arm wrestle you over there. Oh, yeah. I might even go for it. I give it a shot even though I lose. Well, maybe between the two of us we can satisfy it.
Hey guys, if you're watching our show, welcome to Fox 5 Live. You're still looking at this live shot here inside this gym. And Terrence is joining me here, our IT guy, because he's from here. He's a native from around here, and you're a fan. And most people here in our area are big fans of Kevin Durant. Tell me about the hype of him coming back.
So, Kevin Durant is finally coming back to PG County after winning his first championship with the Golden State Warriors.
Mm-hmm. People wanted him to join the Wizards, right? They were
they wanted to, but that's kind of like impossible.
Yeah, to pick.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how all that works, but yeah, just with John Wall and Otto Porter getting those deals, the max deals, I don't think that they can afford Kevin Durant.
So now, like, people come out in droves, right? It's a big celebratory day. There was a big parade. Now he's going to, I think, be speaking to these kids. Is this, this is his hometown gym? This is, like, his hometown place?
Yeah, Kevin Durant is from Seat Pleasant, Maryland.
Yeah.
Which is, like, down the street from where I'm from. I'm from Landover Hills, Maryland. And they're both in PG County. So Kevin Durant is, like, maybe the greatest athlete to come out of Prince George's County, Maryland.
So that's the biggest deal right there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys saw it earlier, I know we had it on our morning show, but there were just tons of people around, tons of media. Even here, you can see there's like kids getting ready. Must be like a kids camp or something.
Yeah.
Getting ready to see him speak, and we'll kind of see what kind of motivational talk he gives the kids, I guess.
Yeah. Is this like officially his first time back?
You know, that's a really good question. If any of you guys know, or if you have any thoughts or comments, and maybe you're from the area, you're a big fan, let us know in the chat what's up with this and how it's important to you. I was reading that they're, just celebrating him coming back to his community, his accomplishments, in sports, obviously, MVP, NBA, and I don't know if it's the first or second. I don't know.
His mother is also a very motivational speaker. She
comes on our show a bunch.
She comes to Fox all the time.
So it'd be no doubt that he also would be a motivational speaker for these kids.
Yeah.
So we'll see when this gets underway, but we're kind of watching here from the digital newsroom, guys, and we're gonna stay on this for a little bit. This is kind of a cool, super local, really hyper local event that's going on right here in DMV in Maryland. Getting a little announcement here from our box. We'll go over just some other international news after this, but we'll stay right here. Like I said, sort of a hyper local story. Terrence is from Maryland, so grew up knowing these people, and
not a lot of people come out of PG County and actually make it.
So that sort of determines, that's sort of part of why he's so special.
I can name like a handful of people that came out of PG County that are highly recognized.
Anybody from here, let us know if you're from the DMV. I'm personally not, but I've been here long enough to sort of know, obviously, the sports and the people here. But this guy's always a big deal, and this was planned for today. There was going to be a festival. I know that was ended up being canceled for some unknown reason, but the parade happened today.
Okay. And
that was really fun. It was really raucous. A lot of kids, a lot of older people. Our crews were there. Lots of media. And lots of media here, too. Our guy is here. He's going to get this live for us, guys. That should be coming in shortly. I'm not sure when he's going to arrive or what he's going to say. There's not really a plan. I just know that he's back, and they're celebrating Kevin Durant Day officially. Today, he's 28 years old.
Dang.
Right? Isn't that crazy?
He came back to get some mumbo sauce. That's why.
The local.
Yep.
Dude, that stuff is good.
Yeah, it's amazing.
For the chicken?
French fries and chicken wings. Get the mumbo sauce.
I learned about that first by being here. Like I said, I'm not a native, but like being in the restaurant, knowing the restaurant scene here, getting into the food scene here, that was something I learned. It was like a big thing.
Yep, definitely.
Interesting. Cool. Always learning stuff. Yeah, again, guys, so festival canceled because of scheduling conflicts, but the parade went on, and now I guess he'll be speaking. In Seat Pleasant. That is Seat Pleasant, right? Is this his? It's sort of named for him.
That's where he was. That's where he went to high school.
That's where he went to school.
Yes, I think he went to Seat Pleasant.
Yeah.
Port Washington, Maryland. That's where he played for National Christian Academy.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So
I didn't know those details.
He's been around. He also went to Oak Hill Academy in Virginia and Montrose Christian School in Rockville, Maryland.
I don't think I realized he was at parochial schooling. That's interesting. I guess you never know. Our live shot is a little in and out here, maybe with the weather, but we'll see. Hopefully this is coming to. Looks like some cheers are happening. We're going to bring this full screen and listen in, guys.
Oh, he's walking in.
Testing. Thank you all so much. At this time, if you take your seats where you are. We're going to start it. Thank you. Thank you all so very much. If you could take your seats at this time. If we could take your seats at this time. You could take your seats at this time. Thank you. What an exciting day. Can we make some noise? It's an exciting day in Seat Pleasant, a smart city of excellence. On behalf of the Durant family and our city government, the county executive, the governor of the state of Maryland, we welcome each of you this morning to this exciting, exciting day. Make some noise! This is going to be a short program, speakers, short. It's going to be a short program. But this is a hometown feel. We know that so many people would like, can I get your attention? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Your attention. We know so many people came out and braved the hot weather to enjoy this festive day, where the entire world is focused on Seat Pleasant at this very hour. And it's as a result of one individual who in this very gym worked hard, sweated, slept in this gym, practiced in this gym, ran in this gym, shot hoops in this gym, that we are here today. And not only did he do all of that, but he didn't forget where he came from. That he gave back to this very gym that we are in. Let's give Kevin Durant a round of applause. Y'all can do better. Y'all can do better. Y'all can do better than that. As I get ready to call the various speakers, I do have to give an appreciation to Governor Hogan, as well as Governor Rutherford, for the state support of this event. I can't thank the county executive, Russian Baker, enough for all of his support, Prince George's County Police Department, and all of the resources that went into this, making this event what it is. I have to also thank my good friend Ronnie Gathers, the Director of Parks and Recreation. Thank you, Ronnie, and your team for all that you have done today. I know I saw Debbie Tyner. Debbie Tyner from Parks and Rec. Thank you so much, Debbie, for what you have done. I know, where's the director? Sherry Cottrell, the director who runs this center. Y'all give Sherry Cottrell a round of applause. Thank you so much. Isn't it wonderful that we were able to also, well, thanks to Kevin, get all of this media out here today to cover some positive news. Let's give it up to the media for covering something positive in our community. We thank our partners, News Channel 4, who was our television sponsor for this event. Thank you, News Channel 4, WRC-TV. Our radio sponsor, which was with us from the beginning, Radio 1. Thank you, Radio 1. Thank you so much, Barrett, for all of your help here today. At this time, I'd like to bring for 2 minutes to the podium, or to the mic, the Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Maryland, Boyd Rutherford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And of course, we're here to celebrate and appreciate NBA superstar, Olympic gold medalist, and hometown hero, Kevin Durant. You know, he led the Golden State Warriors to the NBA championship and was voted the most valuable player in that tournament. And we are all appreciative of everything that he has done on the basketball court, but probably more so and more importantly, what he has done at home. And right here in his home gym, in his hometown, never forgetting where he came from, in coming back to Seat Pleasant and investing in this community. And we really appreciate all that he does and has been doing for the community and making the whole area and the state of Maryland very proud. And thank you very much, Kevin. So I'm going to take this time. I had 2 minutes, but I'm going to be less than 2 minutes. I want to present you with the governor's citation. And I'm going to take a moment to read most of it, but not all of it. Be it known that on behalf of the citizens of this state, in recognition of your extraordinary athletic talent and brilliant success as a much admired NBA basketball player, in appreciation of the positive difference your time, personal involvement, and generous support has made on behalf of the youth of Seat Pleasant and the Seat Pleasant Activity Center, and as our citizens join in honoring you for your commitment to the Seat Pleasant community and Maryland's youth, we are pleased to confer upon you this governor's citation, signed this date, Lawrence J. Hogan, Jr., Governor, myself, Lieutenant Governor, and John C. Wobensmith, Secretary of State. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Now to the leader of our county, the County Executive of Prince George's County, the Honorable Russian Baker.
Are you feeling Seat Pleasant? Isn't this great? Isn't this great for Prince George's County? I want to thank you, Mr. Durant, for being back here, being home. And we talk a lot about your basketball skills and the things you've done, but the role model you are is for these young people in education. Because you understand more than most folks that it's not only your skills on the court, but it's your education that's going to carry you through in life. Because you're going to stop playing basketball or some sport at some point in your life, but you're going to carry on with life and having that education. That's why it gives me great honor and privilege on behalf of Prince George's County to proclaim this Kevin Durant Day with this proclamation, if I can have you, in Prince George's County. Now I have one more, because I know I wouldn't be where I am without my parents. And I especially wouldn't be where I am without a very loving mother who made it possible for a very bad child to become county executive. If I can have your mom come up on behalf of the real MVP for us in Prince George's County, the real role model, Mrs. Durant. This is the plate, golden plate from Prince George's County. I get your picture with you, because this is going on my wall.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. And we want to thank the next person who is about to come up, who he and his team are responsible for the management of this facility. All of them, Sherry Cottrell, Debbie Tyner, all of them worked so hard to make this center available for the people in this community. We're very grateful to Parks and Recreation. We want to welcome to the podium at this time the Director of Parks and Recreation, who's about to retire as well, I hear. And so we thank you for your years of dedication and service. So this is a good way to go out. Thank you so much, Mr. Ronnie Gathers.
Thank you, Mayor Grant, and everyone who has come out here today really to celebrate, our hometown hero. I met Kevin a few years back when I first came on as director, and, I said to the people that I know, he's the most humble individual that I've met in athletics in a long, long time. And you can tell his character by the way he carries himself, by what he does, about how he gives back to this community. He redid this gym floor, he redid the basketball court, but in light of all the physical improvements Kevin has done, Kevin has given his time and his heart to all the young people like what you see in this room here today. So let's give them a round of applause. So I'm going to ask Kevin to come up. We're going to give you just a small token of our appreciation. We want to say we love you, man. And I want to ask Anthony and a few of our folks here to come up and help me do this, this award, because we want to say that we love you from our heart in Prince George's County. You represent well, and we're going to be with you in the future as you go on and make some more championships, okay?
Let me recognize that some of the leaders of Seat Pleasant, test, I think it went, there it is. The leaders of Seat Pleasant, we're happy, they won't speak, but we just want to acknowledge their presence. The President of the City Council, Rivero Jurgen, please stand. Councilman at Large, Kelly Porter. Kelly, hello? Okay. I think it went out. No, Kelly Porter. Okay, yeah. Kelly Porter, City Council at Large. Representative Ward 5, Gloria Sistra. Representative Ward 1, Lamar Maxwell. Representative at Large, Sharika McCarthy. Newest member of the City Council, Ms. Hope Love. We're in her ward. Ward 4, Shaw Jones, Councilwoman. Thank you all. Now the moment that many of you have been waiting for, to hear the voice of the man of the hour, the reason why we are here. Not only is he physically a giant in our community, but because of his reputation, because of his hard work, because of who he is as a person, a man of integrity, or somebody that from this community has come and shown the entire world who we are. If you want to know who we are, you can look no further as I bring to this microphone our brother, your brother, whom we love, Kevin Wayne Durant.
Yeah, appreciate that intro, man. That was big. I was raised in here. I was born in here. I crafted my skills in this gym every day, and it was definitely life changing for me. You know, it wasn't just because I played basketball here. It was because all the people. You know, when I walked in the gym, I felt love from Stink to Miss Jackie to Miss Sheila to Miss Shalita to everybody on down. They showed love to all the kids, and that was the reason why we made it. Especially now with so much going on in our country and our world. So much negative stuff going on. We leaned on each other in this building, and we raised some pretty amazing kids here. So thank you so much. I owe you guys way more than you owe me, or I don't even know what to say, but I appreciate it. You know, thanks so much. My mom, my grandmother, my brothers, all my friends here, people I grew up with playing ball with. This means a lot to bring a championship back here. Hopefully I bring more and more and more, but my goal is to keep screaming PG County and Seat Pleasant wherever I go. And I'm gonna keep representing y'all as much as I can. I appreciate all the love and support, and this is amazing. Let's keep it going. So I appreciate it.
sir. Yes, wrong. At this time, Kevin would not exist, obviously, if it wasn't for two people coming together to produce life. But the one we always acknowledge, all of us, especially men, that we acknowledge is our mothers. We love our mothers. Kevin loves his whole family, let's be very clear for the record. He loves his entire family. But right now, we really want to bring up the real MVP to have something to say to each of you. You've seen her on television. She has traveled throughout this country giving positive messages. She is a very dear friend of this community. She loves each and every one of you. And at this time, if you all don't mind, help me give a strong round of applause to Wanda Durant.
My intro was a little different, Mayor, but I'll accept it. I just wanted to say, yeah, that's the name that he gave me. When I come back here, I remember this being a place of refuge for my children, a place that they called home. I came yesterday to visit, and I was looking for the curtain that my son would sleep behind, and I'm thinking, what happened? That should have been something that should have stayed behind. But I like to thank all of the men and women that were here during the years that my children were here. It was Sting, Chucky, Jeff, Jackie, Shalita, Mr. Harvey, Russ, Bo, Sam, so many people, so many of them that helped me to raise my sons to be the men that they are today. So this is a sacred place for us. And one of the things I want the kids to know is that when you see Kevin's life, see that he produced what you see on TV 20-something years ago. It started back here 20-something years ago. So sometimes you have to work really hard and you don't get the reward until 20 years later. But through the process, you begin to grow, you begin to know who you are as a person, and your successes will come true. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you all for coming out and supporting my son and supporting the community. God bless you, and we love you all.
The other team that produced life, who is also helping to run Kevin's Team Durant here in our community, we want to welcome his father to the podium, Wayne Durant. Pratt.
I just want to say thank you to all of y'all, especially in the Sea Pleasant Rec, for being a refuge for my son. It's glad that this is his foundation for what he's done over the years, and it's glad to come back and be a part, y'all be a part of what he's done and his success. And it doesn't end here. We're gonna win a couple more championships, hopefully. And the support that he's given to the program at Team Durant, and we're growing and being a national program, and it's all because of his support. And we want to keep growing and keep giving back to the community. So thanks a lot.
All right, we know everybody wants these photo ops, so I need y'all to work with me. We know everybody wants photo ops, but we know that that is not possible. So we ask that you work with us just real quickly here. So the next group of people that we're going to have are the children, which this day is really about, is these young people. Let's give it up for these children. Please do not crowd. Please do not crowd. Yeah, I got you. Yeah. So these children in the camp right here, real quickly. Children. Photographers, stay back. Photographers, step back. Photographers, step back. Thank you. Help me out, Ace. Thank you. Photographers, step back. Going real quick. Come on. Quickly.
All right, guys, you are watching Fox 5 Live here from our digital newsroom. You're watching this live coverage of the Kevin Durant Day, which is continuing in Seat Pleasant, of course, his hometown. I'm here with a PG native.
Yes.
Terrence, our IT guy, in studio. What do you think about all this? Pretty cool stuff.
It's pretty great.
He comes back and celebrates his community.
He definitely comes back, celebrates. He seems very thankful, humble that he was of the opportunity that he was given. And I'm pretty sure all the kids at Seat Pleasant right now are super excited that he's in the atmosphere with them.
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
Pretty awesome to bring back that trophy, get all those accolades here, and have his mom speak. His mom comes on our show sometimes, if you guys catch it, ever on Fox 5 morning show. And this morning we followed the parade, guys, the Kevin Durant parade in Prince George's County as well. And there was just a ton of people there, kids and adults and media presence. If you guys are on Facebook and you are fans, maybe you're from Prince George's or Seat Pleasant, let us know. Shout it out. We'll shout you guys out. It's super exciting to see him come back when he does. I thought it was cool to see him speak. I wasn't sure if he was going to give a little statement.
Yeah. He seemed a little unsure because he was getting those awards at first, and then he finally said his piece.
He got a bunch of things to put up on next to his gold.
Yeah, next to his trophy, the NBA trophy. You know, you can't let that go once you win it.
You can't leave its space. You can't leave its presence.
Kevin Durant will take it everywhere he goes.
So cool.
Until next year.
I'm sure those kids that got that photo op, at least they're doing photo ops now. They're waving to the camera. That's cute. I'm sure they're super excited. So thanks for all your congrats, guys. Awesome comments. Thanks for watching on Facebook here. If you're on YouTube as well, shouting you out. Thanks for watching our stream. We're going to kind of continue with this as it rolls out, and then we'll stop it and go back to Fox 5 Live on our YouTube stream. If you want to follow us there, we're at Fox 5 DC on that channel, and you can see what else is up for live news for today during your midday lunch break hours. All right, guys, that's it for us. We'll go back in here and listen in as this kind of continues and comes to a close. All right, guys, welcome back to the newsroom. We're going to switch it up now. That event seems to be closing out. So thanks for watching Fox 5 Live here on YouTube, guys. We're going to go down to North Carolina. Attorney General Jeff Sessions is speaking on gang violence in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I got to give a little shout out. That's where I went to college, in the town of Winston-Salem. It's very near and dear to my heart. So he's down there at a convention center in the downtown, speaking to local and federal law enforcement in North Carolina about gangs across the Carolinas training, that type of symposium, and other things. That's ongoing right now, so we're going to bring that to you from where it is now, and then finish that out, and then see what else we got going on that's live. Hope you enjoyed the Kevin Durant Day. Pretty exciting stuff. That was all live. Everything we bring to you, we try to do just raw and unedited and live. So if you are joining us here, welcome. Feel free to chat in the box on the right side of your screen, and I'll shout you out, and you can ask any questions or give me any comments that you have about what we're doing. All right, so let's go down to North Carolina. Attorney General Jeff Sessions, he's speaking right now.
I wish I could say that North Carolina had not been affected by MS-13, but they're here, and the threat is serious. Some of you may remember that back in November, 2 MS-13 members in Charlotte were sentenced to life imprisonment for murder. They murdered someone because he wore red, the color of a rival gang. This is how easy it is to be killed by a gang. Wear the wrong clothing or the wrong haircut or walk in the wrong neighborhood and you're dead. A third MS-13 gang member was sentenced to 70 months in prison for attempted murder, and 29 other MS-13 gang members were previously sentenced in connection with this case. I say keep the pressure on them. Don't let them get back up. Keep staying after them. Several weeks ago, I visited El Salvador to meet with their Attorney General, Douglas Menendez. He's a courageous Attorney General. His life is at risk there because he's taking on this gang in its home base. We discussed our efforts to cut off MS-13 at its roots. Within a span of just 48 hours, the Attorney General Menendez announced approximately 700 gang members were charged in El Salvador. Hopefully that is 700 gang members that will never reach America and replenish the cliques that we are dismantling and whose members we are incarcerating. So we're not going to let up. You will not let up. We will combat this threat, take the fight to them, and devastate these criminal enterprises. That is our mission. We will refuse to cede one block, one street corner, 1 inch to these gangs. They must never be able to assert sovereignty over the United States territory. Remember, it's more than just cases. We're looking to reduce crime, to take the bloom off the rose of these gangs, to send a message to young people that you join a gang member, you're going to jail. You're not living the high life. This is not the thing you want to be involved in. I feel strongly about that. And we need to keep working on those cases. Even lesser offenders at an early stage, if stopped, can be prevented perhaps from going on to even more serious criminal conduct. So it's not going to be easy, but I have faith in our prosecutors and our law enforcement at every level. This is the work that's waiting for us and for you when you leave this conference. As you go back to your patrols or your desk, I want you to remember this, that every day at the Department of Justice, we recognize and value the important work you do. It is a top priority for us. We honor your mission, and we will always have your back. It has been clear to me that no matter what happens, it's a privilege like no other to serve in law enforcement. It's such a thrill for me to be back in this effort. It's something I've felt so pleased to be able to participate in. It's a privilege like none other to serve in law enforcement and fight for the rule of law. So we try to do that every day. We advocate as best we can with fidelity and aggressiveness, sound constitutional principles in the many litigation questions that come before us.
Guys, going to break in here with some breaking news out of Barcelona, Spain. This is happening right now. I'm going to flash over to our Skyfox coverage for you. Police are saying there has been, police are saying that a van crash in Barcelona is a terror attack. Apparently, a van rolled into some people while some pedestrians on the street, and now they're saying there's even more to this. So let's listen in.
Of that size, traveling at speed, with people standing so closely together, a minimum of 10 injuries would seem perhaps to be on the low side. We hope that that figure remains at that level. These are people being tended to by medical personnel on the scene. Police officers, again, as you notice, dotted around the outside of those injured, not looking inwards, but looking outwards, in case indeed there was a secondary attack. Well, earlier we spoke to Susan McLean, who was 100 meters away from the attack.
Well, it was quite terrifying. We were right near the Plaza Catalan, but in the street adjacent to Las Ramblas. And all of a sudden, just scores of people ran screaming towards us. Hysterical, children hysterical, very limited English. They first of all said someone had been shot. It calmed down for a moment, and then all of a sudden a second wave of people came down the street. We just ran into a shop. I lost my husband in the melee. He went in a different door, but all the shops were shuttered. They locked people inside. They really went into lockdown mode, and most of the area is still locked up. Our hotel was one street away, so we basically got ourselves out, went in the opposite direction from where this has happened, around into our hotel, but the whole area is blocked off. We can still hear sirens in the distance. We were 100 meters away, so we saw the aftermath of all the people that ran, because this was the closest street to where it was. And they were just hysterical. We could see the police, we could see all the cars stopped. We didn't actually see the van hit people. The English in Spain is limited. The English is very poor. The police were doing their job. The people on the street, other than the distressed ones that were talking about someone being shot, we really had no idea what was going on, other than we needed to get ourselves out of there very, very quickly, that it was a very serious situation. There was just hundreds of screaming people running away from where this had happened.
Understandable concern and even panic in the streets of Barcelona after that van mounted the curb, we're told, moved from the road into a pedestrianised area. Local reports suggesting that dozens of people were hit, struck by the van as it moved it clearly at some speed. Then the van driver left the car and moved. A secondary incident appears to be ongoing at the moment. Reports of two armed men that have barricaded themselves in a local bar. No more on that at the moment. Well, we're joined again. Hopefully, we are joined now by Sophia Grant, a tourist who's in the Las Ramblas area. Sophia, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Hi, Sophia. You're in Las Ramblas at the moment. Just describe to us what you're seeing.
I was probably when that happened. I was walking to the plaza, and I was about 4 minutes away from it, next to the Museum of Contemporary Art. There was a bunch of people running towards the museum from the plaza, and 5 armed police officers. And I thought this was a robbery or something like that. And I got to the museum. We were supposed to meet sometime. And basically I checked Twitter and realized that it was an attack. And actually my friend now is there somewhere next to the plaza at the restaurant. We're supposed to leave the restaurant, but they don't allow people to leave yet. And so they're on the lockdown, but people leave now in the museum, and people are leaving, but the exhibition is closed. And you can hear the helicopters everywhere and the police, and everyone is very nervous.
Sophia, many thanks. I just want to bring our viewers some fresh pictures that we've just received of police on the scene. As you can see, this is the first time I'm seeing them with you. So please do bear with me. But quite clearly, armed police moving in formation there. You can understand why the person with the camera decided to move back. We have heard in just the last 30 seconds from Catalan police that they are searching for the driver of the car, the driver of the van, I should say, responsible for this attack. This does feel to me that this is just a clearing through a street. The first few officers that we saw there held their weapons in position. These police officers here, it appears, rather less concerned with firing a shot. We'll just take another look at that footage again, as the police officers at the top of your screen there urging locals, pedestrians, civilians to move out of the way. The police themselves moving down towards the ground floor position of where this video was taken from. But do look at the difference in pose between the first position, the first police officers that we saw holding their weapons in position, and then the officers that we see moving down the alley now. Well, let's speak now again to Amar Anwar, a human rights lawyer who's been at a conference in the city. Amar, many thanks for joining us once again. Just take us straight back to the moment that you realised something was happening in Barcelona today.
I was about to sit down and have something to eat. The place was jam-packed with thousands of tourists and local people. It was so packed, decided that I would carry on, try and find somewhere quiet, which I have to say is pretty impossible in Las Ramblas because it was a beautiful summer's day, or it was, and it's thousands and thousands of tourists. And like I'd walked on about 5-10 seconds, the next thing is I hear a crashing noise, then I hear screams, and it was almost like an avalanche. Just saw people. I turned around and looked, and people were running. I started to run. People in front of me started to run. Hundreds just started running down the street. People were screaming. What stands out to me was this woman who was screaming for her kids because she couldn't see them. And there was a young, I think it was a Bengali man who was running behind me. Eventually I came to stop about 10, 20 seconds probably later, a few hundred meters down, just to see what was happening. And the man had stopped to speak to his friend, and he was speaking away in Bengali. I could understand some of it. I asked him if he spoke Urdu. He then said to me he'd seen a man in the van drive into the crowd, and the guy was very upset because he said he thought 5 or 6 people were very seriously injured, and again then people started to panic, started to run. The police were instantaneously on the scene. I mean, the scene is heavily policed anyway by uniformed and by plainclothes officers, but I mean the area was swamped. Within probably 30 seconds, we had officers out with guns who were very jittery, telling us to move back. There was panic. People were jumping into shops. And then I saw that woman again, the one who'd been screaming for her kids. A police officer took her away, and some of the shopkeepers started pulling up the shutters, and we getting pushed back. I'm down now probably about 600 meters away, further on down. We've been pushed back about 6 times, and I've seen so many ambulances. I mean, every few minutes there's another ambulance goes by, but and I've seen some ambulances going away, so everybody's just shaken and I think horrified. It was just, the place was mobbed. It was just full of thousands of tourists, families and kids. I just stepped into a shop to look at a Barcelona top for my son, thinking I needed to bring him out here, so other kids. So just horrific. I can understand you've been caught up in this event, and where you are, I would be feeling rather nervous and worried myself. I just wondered, we spoke a little earlier to someone else who was in Barcelona today who suggested that ahead of the incident, even before anything took place, she felt like there was quite a substantial police presence in and around the city centre. What's your view on that? I don't know. I mean, sadly, the way things are, I would expect there to be substantial police presence in any major city throughout Europe, especially Barcelona, which is, huge tourist attraction. So one would expect it to be. And to be honest, I came many years ago to Barcelona, probably over a decade ago, but I have to say that, yes, there was a high police presence, but no more than any other major city. In Las Ramblas, anyway, from my understanding, is heavily policed anyway, because one of the advice you're always given is every time I was coming out here, people were saying, watch out for pickpockets.
So there's plainclothes officers and uniform officers, but I think the response from the emergency services within literally 30 seconds, you know, I don't think you can fault the emergency services in the way they responded, but the fact that they did respond in such a heavy manner points towards the fact that either it's a case of they probably, like every other, sadly every other nation in Europe has had to train for this, that they've trained for this, or they were on a high alert. But I think most nations throughout Europe are on high alert at this point in time, so you would expect the emergency services sadly to have to prepare for something like this. The shocking part, I suppose, that drove it home within the space of a few minutes was that I was just hoping that, you know, if this was a crash or something like that, but the way that the police, emergency services, the helicopters in the sky, the guns, pushing back, and the jitteriness of the police officers, and the fact that there is a search now going on for the individual and for the terrorist, it brought home that, you know, this is the terrorist attack that's taking place. You see it on the TV, but it's, you know, it's just shocking. I don't know what words to say. Just keep thinking of the families and kids, and the fact that that woman was screaming because she couldn't see her kids.
Amar, I understand that you're indoors now. That you are, I believe, back at your hotel.
I'm on Las Ramblas still outside behind the ticket tape. We're just being pushed right back, so I can't get to my hotel because it's just off Las Ramblas. So.
Well, Amar, tell us then. I mean, the live pictures that we're seeing, and I believe from a different vantage point from you. These aren't the pictures that we're looking at the moment, but the live pictures that we were looking at just a moment ago show the streets are deserted, save pretty much, you know, save for emergency personnel. The shots we're looking at now just outside the cordon, but inside the cordon, it appears that the police have been very effective at getting people out of harm's way.
We were out. We were, I would say, within a minute. Police officers were pushing back. I mean, within 30 seconds, I saw police officers up there. They were shouting for us all to move back because you know, instantaneously you sort of run with the crowd because the first thought goes through your head, something's happened. And sadly, what you think is, has there been an attack? I heard the crash, the noise, people screaming, you run. But within 30 seconds, police officers were on the scene. They were pushing the crowd back. Paramilitary-style officers with guns, uniforms, appeared, plainclothes officers appeared with badges and bulletproof jackets. They pushed the crowd back very effectively, and people were moved out of harm's way instantaneously. I mean, it was an extremely effective operation, I have to say. Within 1 minute, people were out of that area, and then we kept getting pushed back. So I can see up quite a bit of Las Ramblas now. But I mean, it's just deserted. All you see is the police officers and the vans and ambulances sadly keep going by.
Well, Amar, look, we wish you and your family well. Do stay safe. Thank you for being with us once again.
Thank you.
Well, let's now speak to the Wall Street Journal journalist, Inti Landaro, who joins us on the line from central Barcelona. Inti, just describe to us what you've been seeing today. The pictures that we've been showing reveal, you know, hundreds, thousands of people panicked, and what is clearly a major incident in the heart of Las Ramblas.
Yes, I'm a former, actually, Wall Street journalist. I'm on vacation here in Barcelona. I wasn't present in Las Ramblas when the attack happened. I rushed 2 blocks away, so I rushed, and I saw actually thousands of people, tourists being turned away by the police. I tried to approach the Ramblas. I'm right now 1 block away. All the several blocks of the big avenue were closed and evacuated, and I saw a person being hello.
No, we're still hearing you. We're still hearing you. Please do carry on.
Oh, okay. Right, yeah. So I saw an injured person being evacuated in an ambulance wheeled by paramedics. I spoke with police who were very nervous and turning tourists away, saying that there's a fugitive on the loose around here, and that was dangerous to stay around. Still, there's a few dozens of people who are cordoned off the Ramblas, watching around, and there's dozens and dozens of police officers, and you can hear the ambulances, the police cars. There is a helicopter overflying the area.
Inti, you might be able to shed a little bit of light on something. There appear to have been two incidents, one ongoing, the crash that took place in Las Ramblas, which the police have described as a terrorist attack. There are also reports that armed men have basically besieged themselves in a local bar. Have you seen or heard anything that would suggest that's the case?
I heard about it, but I'm not in a condition to confirm anything about the second incident.
Oh, sure, understandably. Well, tell us just what the mood is in the city where you are. I mean, clearly, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. One thinks actually, people have been told to stay indoors, have been moved out of this area. Now that has happened, at least, and the police appear to have something of a cordon around the area. Have tensions started to alleviate, even if only slightly?
Yes. It's Saturday afternoon in Las Ramblas, is one of the most touristic areas of Barcelona, which attracts thousands of tourists every day in the summer. And you can see all the shops have brought down their iron curtains. Everything's closed, and I would say dozens of people are still around, but most of the people have left.
For those who haven't spent any amount of time in Barcelona, describe how the city works. Whether is it a pedestrianized centre, or do roads run all the way through the city? Las Ramblas, as I understand it, is itself.
Around the Rambla is mostly pedestrian. So you have 2 lanes for cars up and down. It's a big avenue, very very commercial avenue, linking the beachfront to a big plaza above, and you have bars and restaurants, souvenir shops. It's the point where all the tourists want to be. It's remembered by stories in such novels as Hemingway books mentioned it, I think. So it is the classic area you want to visit when you come to Barcelona.
And a number of people that we've been speaking to today have commented on the normal level of security personnel on the street. That obviously a very popular tourist destination, obviously a rather large city. You would expect there to be a substantial police presence on the streets. I mean, before this incident took place,
you would expect, and there was one, and also in other areas of the city where I was when the incident happened. Like, all the police reacted immediately, closing off, cordon off, being much more attentive to paying much more attention to what is happening now all over the city. You feel that all the police are. It's another ambulance driving down the Ramblas right now.
Inti Landero, thank you very much for joining us. That's the journalist Inti Landero speaking to us from central Barcelona itself. The latest that we are hearing from the Spanish wire agency EFE, citing unnamed police sources, is that perhaps as many as 20 have been injured in this incident. Let's speak again to Sky's David Bowden, who's at the wall, who can tell us a little bit more. Remind us, David, I mean, information in terms of picture and in terms of statistics is coming to us thick and fast now from Barcelona. Just bring us up to date with what we know.
Well, Neil, there's clearly two distinct elements to this attack. First of all, we had the van ploughing down these people in this broad boulevard right in the city centre. We know that the driver of that van fled, and of course we also know that there are 2 men holed up in a restaurant, but we don't know how these people are connected, or whether in fact one of these men in the restaurant is in fact the van driver. We have some pictures we've been showing you before of what are clearly armed police moving down an alleyway, and we are assuming that they are working on a tip-off, trying to move to find the driver, because clearly they know where the restaurant is, so they wouldn't have to be edging around looking for people. So they must be going to find where the driver has disappeared to. These are clearly armed, but they are not in full body armor. and there is some element of people just kind of wandering around seeing what's going on. It's obviously, Neil, developing as we speak, but clearly this is a situation that is coming in two entire halves. It now looks as though we can see pictures of the restaurant itself. We don't know whether these are police going into the restaurant or police moving outside, shot from a restaurant. But very, very confusing at the moment about whether these two incidents, well, clearly they're linked, but whether we've got all the three protagonists that we know of in the same place, or whether we've got two people in a restaurant and we've still got the driver of this van on the run being hunted by armed police.
Many thanks. Well, in the past few minutes, we have heard from Catalan police that they have activated the protocols for such a terrorist attack, but they cannot confirm the motive behind the Barcelona crash. Let's discuss those protocols, what they may well be, with the former counter-terrorism head at the Ministry of Defence, Chip Chapman, who joins us now from Edinburgh. Chip, thanks for being with us. Talk us through what happens in the immediate aftermath of an incident such as this. A van mounts the pavement, ploughs into what appear to be dozens of pedestrians. What happens next?
Well, the first thing police want to go through the 4 Cs. That's confirm, clear, cordon, control. That's cease the operations of the Met area. So they want to sanitize both the area of the incident for preservation of evidence. And they also want to sanitize the cordon of where this significant second incident may be. Now, it's worth saying that 60% of reports are wrong, misleading, or inaccurate of just after these attacks. So we have to be slightly careful about the second element at the moment. And that includes the number of deaths, because some of the reports we've had are of the van going at 80 to 100 kilometers an hour. You've got a 90% chance of being killed if a vehicle goes over 40 miles an hour. So what we normally would say is that the death toll, if it's hit significant numbers of people, will rise if it was going at any significant speed.
Talk us through, just in a little bit more detail, the purpose of that sanitising operation. Quite clearly, the emergency services, police taking the lead, of course, have put in place a cordon, have moved everyone out of the area. I mean, first and foremost for safety, but you also suggested to preserve evidence.
Yeah, and there's two things they're trying to do here. You've got two scenarios of if there are people out there. Firstly, if they're in a restaurant, you've got a seize and hold operation. That's actually a good thing from a security perspective, because they are not, in the worst case thing, that is shooting and scooting or mobile, be it with either weapons or with bladed weapons. So if you've got a contained situation, that's ultimately easier to deal with than a situation when people are potentially marauding, as I said, with either bladed weapons or firearms. Now, we haven't heard any firearms being discussed or any shots being heard, so that doesn't seem likely to me. It's not clear from the initial reports as well as if we've had a number of armed response vehicles as you have.
Sorry, Chip, and in terms of the search operation that appears to be going on at the moment, we've seen a few clips now, you've described as UGC, user-generated content, people with their camera phones out essentially, showing a combination of what look like armed response officers and ordinary police officers moving through. What is the procedure that they will be following? We're just seeing a number of people with what look like automatic weapons moving through the streets. How do you proceed when you don't know who you're looking for or indeed where they might be?
Well, of course, you've got a number of layers of different responses here. You've got the sort of Catalonian equivalent of the Bobby on the beat, and you've got those who are counter-terrorist trained officers. Now, the initial Bobby on the beat would be the ones who would be putting the cordon in around where the vehicle are. If there is a dynamic incident with people who are held up in a restaurant, that will be handed over to counter-terrorist, specially trained counter-terrorist officers commanded from the equivalent of, in the counter-terrorist command in London, a gold headquarters. So a significant headquarters, so you've got all the elements of the response coordinated.
From what you have seen, I mean, obviously, Chip, the last time we spoke was, I believe, in and around the time of the London Bridge attack, and there are clearly, if reports of a second incident taking place with armed individuals holding up in a bar or restaurant somewhere. I mean, there are clear parallels with it. From what you've seen of the Spanish response, what is your assessment of how effective they've been?
Well, the Spanish response at the moment seems okay, but of course we don't have half the incident really if there is this second one to go. So it's judging by what the outcome is, not judging by what happened from the first event. Now, the emergency services response seems to be pretty good at the moment, but we'll have to look at when we cross the finish line what the situation likes there. That's when we determine what the success or failure of the overall operation will be.
Chip Chapman, many thanks for joining us once again. We appreciate it. Just some updates for you. The Foreign Office, we're told, have updated their travel advice for Spain. This advice, as always, you can find on their website. But the Foreign Office have said this, that the Embassy in Madrid and the Consulate General in Barcelona are in contact with local authorities and urgently seeking further information following reports of the incident that we're describing to you at the moment. Local authorities have advised people to stay inside and stay away from the Las Ramblas area of the city. There was similar advice from the State Department in the United States. They say that they are closely monitoring events in Barcelona. They urge Americans to stay away from the area and, importantly, update family and friends with their whereabouts. Let's bring in David Bowden once again. And that comment from the State Department, there must be any number of American tourists in Barcelona at the moment. The State Department recommending they stay indoors for obvious reasons, but also that they make contact with their family and friends to let them know that they're safe.
Yeah, I mean, you need to get as many people as you can out of the area. Clearly, there will be people in every country across the world bombarding their equivalent of the Foreign Office saying, look, what do I do? My uncle, my aunt, my mum, my dad is over there. So they've got to get this message out. Basically, it is, of course, if you are in the area, then get out of the area. And if you can't get out of the area, then get inside, get out of the way of potentially what might happen next. Let's have a look. Clearly, we're talking about Barcelona in the northeast of Spain, and specifically Las Ramblas, this big kind of central boulevard that bisects the entire city. It's wide, it's got one lane of traffic at one way up the other, but the centralized bit is pedestrianized, kind of cafe society, lots and lots of people, lots and lots of tourists there at this time of year. And of course, what we know is that this van, this white van, plowed into dozens of people, we're told. We're told that there are at least 2 people who have died. That could, of course, increase. We know there are a number of injured people, probably a couple of dozen. We also know that the driver of the van then fled the scene on foot. Then we have something that appears to be happening sequentially and almost in parallel. We're told that there are 2 terrorists, that's how they're described by the Spanish authorities, entrenched in a restaurant. And we don't know whether they are simply taking refuge, but as we look here in the screen, you can see that we have police officers armed, moving in, and what we think they are trying to do is locate the van driver. You can see that these guys are armed, they've got some body armor, but they are not in full gear. So they're obviously not specialist officers who've been brought in. They are people who are around, obviously the equivalent of bobbies on the beat, moving in, trying to find out where this guy has fled to and whether or not he's directly linked with these people in the restaurant. We have heard reports that there have been shots fired, but nobody knows whether that's true, and nobody seems to know who is firing at who. So at the moment, what we do know is that 2 people died having been run over by this man in a van. We know he has fled and is now being tracked down by the local police, and we have 2 armed men in a restaurant, and everything else is conjecture right now. We have seen throughout the time we've been talking about this, various vehicles at high speed, speeding down this road, past the police roadblocks. It is fair to assume these are specialist units, security units, moving into place. And of course, as we were hearing from Chip Chapman earlier, what they need to do is get a handle on this. Somebody needs to take control. Somebody needs to be in command so that Everybody knows what's going on. They have all the intelligence coming to one area, and somebody can decide what's going on in that restaurant now. Are they a direct threat to the people in there? Are they simply hiding down there? Is there any way they can get them and their weapons out of that restaurant without anybody else getting hurt? That is the dream scenario for the security forces. Everything that happens after that potentially puts people in risk. Neil.
David, many thanks. Well, we are still yet to hear any official words on the death toll, the number of fatalities. However, El País, one of the largest daily newspapers in Spain, they have confirmed, their sources confirming 3 fatalities. 3 people have died as a result of what happened. We're also hearing from El País sources that one of the attackers appears to be holed up in the bar. Indeed, the latest that we have heard, we are hearing, this is single sourced from Cadena Ser Radio, local radio station. They say that they are citing police sources. They are claiming that at least 13 people have been killed in that van crashing in Barcelona city centre. We were speaking just a few moments ago to Chip Chapman, who suggested that, if you have a vehicle travelling at, 80, 90 kilometres an hour, you have a 90% chance of being killed. And in a pedestrianised area at this time of day, in the heart of Barcelona, there would have been hundreds of people who could potentially have been hit by a van travelling at that type of speed. Another piece of information reaching us from El País at the moment, they say that security forces are looking for a second van that could have been involved in the incident in Las Ramblas. They hypothesize that a Fiat-branded van, the one that we've seen hit dozens of people in the middle of Barcelona, then the driver and a second occupant have fled, but they may well be looking for another van. Now, that may in part explain why reports of 2 individuals holding themselves up, 2 armed individuals have holed themselves up in a bar in another part of Barcelona. I wonder if we might just return to David Bowden just once again and discuss these latest snippets of information. First and foremost, David, the death toll as being cited by Cadena Ser Radio at least 13 dead. Given the size of the vehicle and the number of people who would have been milling around, for no reason would they have looked over their shoulder to check for traffic. 13 does not sound beyond the realms of possibility.
No, it doesn't. And of course, what has happened in the time we've been talking about this and the time we've been reporting this story, that a number of those people who were perhaps badly injured will have been taken to emergency departments, will have been receiving treatment, and many of those dead, if indeed it is 13, may in fact have died in hospital, being declared dead once they got to hospital, died from their injuries. The early reports of at least 2 dead coming literally minutes after this attack began, and clearly people assessing on the scene that these 2 people had died there and then. There will then have been a whole load of other people taken in ambulances to hospitals for treatment, and it now looks, if we are to believe this local report, which is claimed comes from the police, that 13 people have died. I suspect some of those died in hospital from their injuries. But we now seem to be getting a bit more of a fuller picture about these 2 men entrenched in the restaurant. It looks as though that what has happened is that the van driver is one of these 2 men. At one point, there was the possibility there were 3 men, 1 who fled and was being hunted down, 2 who were entrenched in the restaurant. It is now, from police reports, looking as though there are only 2 men in the restaurant and only 2 men that we know about involved in this attack at the moment. But as you were talking about earlier, Neil, there are reports of a second van. Now, is that simply to get away for the 2 people who are now holed up in the restaurant? Was it supposed to be part of a second attack? Is there anything in that van that the security services need to be mindful of? They will be cordoning that off, looking, going close to it with a robot, I suspect, because we don't know what's in it. There could be explosive in it. We can only conjecture at this point, but what we can be sure about is that we now have a major terrorist incident in another European city in a year when there have been many, many major terrorist incidents in cities across the continent. It looks as though now that we're getting more activity with police vehicles coming and going, the area clearly a lot more sterile than it was when it all started. People who were in that area now being moved away, and we can see that there are police vehicles right in the heart, small alleyways here, people being moved out of businesses, cafes, even homes in the area, to make sure that if this turns into any kind of running battle between the men in the restaurant as they try and perhaps make a break for it, try and outrun the police, we could end up with shots being fired in the open on the streets. And the last thing that the police, the security services want to have is people getting hit by stray bullets as they try and bring this to a close. So they need to get as many people safely out of the area as they can, and they need to get everybody else indoors, windows, doors battened down, so that they can't get these people into other areas. They need to keep them in the restaurant, they need to keep them pinned down in the restaurant, and they try and get them out of there safely. At the moment, if we assume that the restaurant is surrounded by police, then it's pretty clear that at the moment the situation is relatively contained. What the police and the security service need to do is make sure that continues. They do not want this situation spilling back out onto the streets where potentially more people get hurt, Neil.
David, thanks very much. Well, as David just mentioned, what police and other security personnel were very keen on was making sure that people left the area or moved off from the streets inside. One of those, Mel Higgins, is a tourist who's been visiting the city, and we can talk to them now. Mel, thanks for being with us. You yourself were about a couple of streets away from the van crash, and found yourself barricaded inside a shop, I'm told.
Yes, that's right, yeah. So I was with my two daughters, and we were walking down the Paseo de Gracia, which is sort of parallel and one up from the Rambla, when suddenly just people started running towards us, screaming and shouting, "Run, run, run." So, I grabbed the two girls, and there was an orange phone shop was open. We ran inside, and they locked the doors of the phone shop, and we just all waited there for, I suppose, probably about 20 minutes. And then it seemed very calm out on the street. And obviously the people working in orange were in touch with the police, and the police said, just stay there for now. Then about 20 minutes later, they said we could leave, and we were just about to leave when people started running again and screaming. They said, everyone back in. So we went back inside. At this point, they shut down the shutters, and they told us to all go upstairs. And we all went upstairs, and we were there for about 20 minutes, just sitting there waiting. And, we could see everyone out on the street, and they looked quite calm by then, actually. And then after about 20 minutes, they said, okay, the police have said, everyone, please just go home now. Just go straight home, go home as quickly as you can. And that was it, really.
So Mel, where are you and your daughters at the moment? Have you managed to get away?
Yeah, so we met up with my husband. Probably we were a little bit worried because he was somewhere else, but by phone we contacted him. It worked out he was okay. Met up with him, and then just walked. It was probably about a 25-minute walk home in the opposite direction to where the incident was.
And as you made that journey, we've been speaking to a number of people who've been in and around La Rambla, talking about just the sheer volume of ambulances, of police that were speeding to the location. You must have seen some of that.
Yeah, there were constant police cars, constant ambulances, police on the street, motorbikes. But people were very, very calm in the street, and they were just directing everyone in the opposite direction. But people were still wandering down towards the incident. So that was the situation.
How are your daughters after being
they were
bundled into a shop?
When we were in the shop, they were very scared because suddenly you see all these things on TV, and then even though we were safe, you suddenly can understand how frightening it is. And at one point, before we were told to go upstairs, they were telling everyone to duck. So we were ducking behind the counter. And the two of them they were quite scared, as was I as well. And there were a couple of young children who were crying, and so it was just the unknown, really, not knowing what had happened. And then of course everyone started looking on their phones and found out what had happened.
Well, anyone who is caught up in a situation like that has a right to be scared. Mel, just you may well not have noticed that why would you? But up until the point that this incident took place, had you noticed that the police presence on the streets? Did it strike you as quite a heavy police presence ahead of what happened this afternoon?
No, to be honest, we only arrived in Barcelona yesterday, so today was our first day going into the centre. And to be honest, no, I hadn't noticed excessive police presence, but I wasn't looking either. I know, obviously, I'm very aware of the situation at the airport because we're flying back on Monday. So I'm watching the news and, aware that the civil guard are taking control of that. But I really wasn't thinking about the streets.
And what do you and your husband, your family, what do you intend to do now, given what's happening just outside your door?
Probably won't go shopping. We won't go to the Ramblas tomorrow anyway. I think maybe we'll go to the beach or to a quiet place, or maybe just stay at home. Haven't quite worked it out yet. We've just come home now. We're going to watch the news, stay in tonight. I think they're telling everyone just go home. Lock your doors, go home until the situation has. I know that the people are still in the restaurant, so let's see what happens.
Well, we wish you and your family well, and very pleased that you're safe and sound.
We're fine. Thank you very much.
Mel Higgins, many thanks indeed. Let's just bring you up to date with the very latest that we're hearing from Barcelona, where a van has crashed into crowds in a pedestrianised shopping district in the city centre. At least 13 people have been killed as a result of that. That, according to one source, I should say, Cadena-Ser, that's a radio station in Spain. Other media, including El País, one of the biggest daily newspapers in Spain, saying that there are at least 10 dead. A police spokesman at the moment not confirming on the record the number of casualties, but at the very least it does appear that has moved into double figures. We are also now being told by Catalan police that they are treating this as a terrorist attack. We have heard that from a number of sources, in fact. Now, let's just bring you some new picture that we have now. It's some new video of the search taking place inside the marketplace, as you see there, and police carrying sidearms, wearing helmets, moving through. Unclear as to why they're moving backwards away from a place of interest. You notice there are line looking to the left and off camera, whether it's for colleagues to follow or because they're just checking their rear. These pictures continue. The search clearly taking place. Speaking a little earlier with our correspondent David Bowden, it does certainly appear that the occupants of that van fled on foot and are somewhere still in the city centre. There is this parallel incident that we have been told about of individuals holding themselves up in a bar. Again, we cannot confirm whether or not the armed individuals that have taken refuge, so to speak, in a bar are the individuals that caused the deaths in Las Ramblas. It would appear to be a reasonable assumption that they are in some way linked to the van, if not the people that were inside and driving it. But just to remind you, at least 13 people dead, according to one source. El País saying at least 10 dead. And as you can see at the bottom of your screen there, police are moving through the city centre of one of Spain's biggest cities, searching for the occupants of that van. We are expecting an update from Catalan police in the next few minutes. We were told that would be taking place at around about 6 p.m. at British time Of course, in situations such as this, they tend to wish to speak to the public as soon as possible, partly to update. Of course, there's huge interest, not just in Spain, but around the world as to what is happening there, but also to reassure, to make it clear that, as the pictures we've been showing you for the past hour and a half clearly demonstrate, there is a massive police presence, armed and unarmed, uniformed and plain clothes, emergency services, including bomb disposal, including ambulances, have all arrived en masse in the city centre. Now, we're told that the Spanish president the Spanish Prime Minister is being kept abreast of events, as indeed are those in the White House and in Downing Street. The Foreign Office have changed their travel advice for this particular part of Spain, telling people to stay inside and stay away from the Las Ramblas area of the city. It may well be the case that both the State Department in the United States, the Foreign Office here in the United Kingdom, update their travel advice further as information about what has happened on the streets of Barcelona continues to emerge. 2 incidents, a van crash which has killed at least 10 people, and armed individuals holed up in a bar. You're watching Sky News at 6 o'clock tonight. Breaking news from Barcelona. A van has ploughed into crowds of tourists and residents in the heart of the city. At least 13 people have been killed, many more injured in what police are now treating as a terror attack. There are reports that 2 men are now holed up in a bar in the historic Las Ramblas district where the attack has taken place. Good evening. A developing story from Barcelona this evening. Unconfirmed reports say that at least 13 people have been killed in a terror attack in the centre of the city. Police are hunting the driver of a white van which mounted the pavement in the popular Ramblas shopping area of the city. There are reports of 2 armed men holed up in a restaurant. Metro and railway stations in the area have been closed. Well, this is the map. This shows you the location of the Las Ramblas district in Barcelona, close, very, very close to the coastline. Well, we're joined on the line by Will Geddes, a security expert who is, in fact, in Barcelona. Will, good to speak to you. Tell us what you've been hearing. You're in Barcelona yourself at the moment.
I am, Neil. Yeah, where I am right now is at the bottom of Las Ramblas. As you can hear with the sirens, there's just been an added spike of activity by the authorities. The cordon was running at the very south end of Las Ramblas by the Columbus Monument. They've now moved and pushed everybody back even further, and there are more emergency services turning up. Now, from local sources that I'm speaking to right now, there are various reports coming through, as yet unconfirmed, of 13 dead, but also a siege situation which is still occurring. Again, as you know, a lot of these initial reports can be inaccurate, so we'll need confirmation. But it's believed that of the 2 men in the siege situation, one of them is the driver of the van that carried out the initial attack.
Will, give us your assessment of the way in which the Spanish authorities have responded.
Well, at the moment, they're trying to keep it as relaxed as they possibly can. I mean, the plainclothes officers that are dealing with the members of the general public, and Las Ramblas is, if you like, the Piccadilly Circus of Barcelona. It's full of tourists. It is very much a tourist-concentrated area. There's an awful lot of people. I was up here at lunchtime today, and obviously the authorities are doing their best to try and not panic the locals or, for that matter, tourists that are in the immediate vicinity.
We were speaking a little bit earlier to another security expert who was describing the purpose of this cordon that clearly is in place at the moment. First and foremost, of course, getting people to safety, getting them out of harm's way. But also, given that there does appear to be something of a manhunt ongoing at the moment, first it preserves the evidence in and around the scene, but also... sorry, what was that I just heard there, Will?
That's just traffic, I'm afraid, Neil, nothing else.
Thank goodness. Sorry, Will. But just again, this cordon that's in place at the moment, partly to get people to safety, partly because there's a manhunt, partly also to preserve the scene for any evidence. Just talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, absolutely. You know, your previous guest was absolutely right. The most important thing is to preserve evidence, but also to contain the situation, especially if it's still live, or they can't confirm that they haven't entirely contained, if you like, in terms of the potential suspects. Now, at the moment, obviously information is going to be somewhat foggy until they can determine how many people were involved, how many perpetrators, do they know and have they accounted for where they are, and whether they can control them in that area and stop it evolving into what is probably the most feared type of situation, obviously, in circles right now, which is a multiple or series of attacks that could take place in other locations.
Well, I was sitting in this very chair when a very similar incident occurred in and around London Bridge and Borough Market. It does feel that we are seeing this type of incident with increased frequency. Is that the case, or are we just focusing on it rather much more than we did in the past? Is this a new tactic that's increasing in frequency or not?
Well, it's not especially a new tactic. I mean, we saw similar types of attacks being carried out in Mumbai many years ago. I think it's almost 10 years ago now. In terms of obviously the delivery or using a vehicle as a platform for delivery of attacks, as we've seen with Borough Market, Nice, Berlin Christmas Market, and now here in Barcelona, this is a very easy way for a terrorist to carry out a devastating attack, particularly in a open area where there's a number of pedestrians that are concentrated in that area. And Las Ramblas, if viewers see it obviously on Google Maps and Street View, you'll see it's a very, very small, narrow road in many regards. And therefore, you've got lots of people in that area. It makes it very easy for them. And as we know with terrorists, they'll always look for the path of least resistance and the easiest way to carry out the most devastating attack.
Simply put, in a city such as Barcelona, in a city such as London, unless you pedestrianize the entire thing, unless you ban traffic from entering, it is impossible to guard entirely against incidents such as this, isn't it?
Well, to a degree. I mean, certainly vehicle mitigation measures, as we're seeing right across London, for example, and other cities in the UK, are making it increasingly difficult for this type of attack to take place. I think what we have to accept, and unfortunately acclimatize ourselves to, is that we will see more of these concrete blocks on bridges in sort of busy populated areas, shopping areas, which again are there to protect us, obviously, against this type of attack, because unfortunately, whilst vehicles are always going to be allowed on the road, they're always going to potentially be a vulnerability to be exploited.
And another aspect of a city's preparedness for situations such as this is having their officers, is having their police officers, is having their ambulance personnel, having their armed and unarmed officers trained. We're told that protocols were followed. It is clear that there was a plan in place in Barcelona to respond to an incident exactly like this.
Yeah, absolutely. From the reports I'm receiving here locally, Neil, their actions were pretty immaculate, and they have been rehearsing like other counter-terrorism agencies and forces around the world. They've been rehearsing for these types of incidents. Now, in terms of its location, Barcelona is a challenging environment to protect against this type of attack. I mean, coming to the Las Ramblas location, walked along the beachfront from my hotel to get here, which is the quickest route for me. And everybody's out on the beach. It's a very open area. So there are lots of different places that those with malintent could potentially choose to attack.
So what, in your mind, will the protocols be for what happens next? The priority, of course, is to find those responsible. But in the immediate aftermath, there are always concerns about secondary attacks. We should expect to see a security presence on the streets, and a beefed up security presence on the streets of Barcelona for some time to come.
Absolutely. And I mean, and in terms of the Spanish authorities, they're very well versed and experienced, as we are in the United Kingdom, in dealing with terrorism, having had many years dealing with ETA, the Basque separatists. So again, they have a heritage of good counter-terrorism capabilities. And I think there will be, if only to provide reassurance for the many foreign visitors that are in town right now, an increase, as you say, in uniformed police presence and Garda vehicle patrol. But I think, again, it's going to be reassuring the local populace as well that they have a grip of the situation as best they can.
Well, Geddes, many thanks for joining us. We'll speak to you again, I'm sure. Just a couple of bits of information to update viewers with. We were reporting a little bit earlier on that there was a search perhaps for a second van involved in this incident, whether that was involved in transporting the individuals responsible or for some other purpose, we do not know. A second van has been found at some 40 miles from Barcelona, that according to TV3. And of course, Barcelona Football Club, the beating heart of this city, they have been commenting on events on Twitter. They've said this: deeply saddened by the attack on our city, all our thoughts are with the victims, their families, and with the people of Barcelona. The very latest that we're told is that at least 10, perhaps as many as 13 people have died after a van crashed into pedestrians in a pedestrianised marketplace in the city. We're also told that those inside the van fled on foot, and there does appear from pictures that we've seen of armed police, not simply armed with sidearms, but armed with what appear to be rifles, moving through the city. There does appear to be something of a manhunt underway. Donald Trump, of course, himself, we're just hearing from the White House, has been alerted to the unfolding situation in Barcelona. Well, let's return to Las Ramblas and speak to Jim Kent, who's from Barcelona City FM. Jim, can you hear me?
Hello, yes, I can.
Jim, just bring us up to date with what you have seen, what you have heard in and around Las Ramblas today.
Okay, so we were at the base of Las Ramblas, so we are backwards to the Mediterranean, looking up the Las Ramblas. When we arrived 20 minutes after the incident. It was pretty deserted of the many thousands of people that would normally be there. We heard from an eyewitness that confirmed it was a white Mercedes transit van that had driven approximately maybe 150, 200 meters down Las Ramblas, down the pedestrianised part of the centre. And then initially, well, you're as up to date as we are on the number of fatalities. Subsequently, we also got messages. There's a WhatsApp message being sent around Barcelona about this hunt for the second white van that was rented, apparently by the same person that rented the initial van. And that message has been distributed on now Spanish media as well. At the base of Las Ramblas, where we are, there was at least maybe 8 or 9 ambulances that are waiting, with a team of maybe 40 paramedics. Not clear what they're waiting for. If they were not rushing to attend injured. It seems as though they had another objective, or maybe perhaps just being prepared for the worst. In terms of the people running away, as you mentioned, we also heard stories of the 2 people running away. The hostage incident, that's currently a little bit unclear what was happening. That's at the other end of Las Ramblas from where we are, so I can't provide any other insights into that, other than to say we understand that the manhunt is continuing for the perpetrators.
Just describe for us, if you can, I mean, how busy would that pedestrianised area have been? Where we're hearing from Catalan police, 32 people have been injured, 10 of them seriously. I mean, that, in any town centre, that would be a significant number, but it would appear that there must have been hundreds of people milling around this particular part of Barcelona at that time.
Correct. There would definitely have been hundreds of people. So, in fact, in some ways, maybe 1 or 2 small mercies that it wasn't worse than what you're describing there. I mean, I understand that after the impact, I mean, there was a very loud bang when the van came to a halt, and that also triggered many people to run away from the incident, obviously in fear, as in they weren't clear exactly what that bang was.
At first glance, it appears that Barcelona has been pretty well prepared for an incident such as this. The police force telling us that they pretty quickly enacted the protocols that were in place. You've been there for a lot longer. Just tell us, John, in terms of, sorry, Jim, just tell us, how does it look to a bystander? The police have clearly been planning for something like this.
Sorry, I only just half heard you there because I've got some police noise behind me. But as far as I understand, generally, Spain does take terrorism seriously. There's a lot of armed police on the streets. So in terms of uniform protection, that's something that you'd have to say that they are prepared in that sense. Of course, they do have 4 different police forces governing it. Sometimes there can be interesting discussions about which police force has jurisdiction over what particular event. But nevertheless, I think you'd have to say, from what we can see, the police have responded quickly And as I speak to you, more ambulances are arriving as I speak to you here at the base of Las Ramblas.
Jim, we've had some detail coming predominantly from El País newspaper about a second van, that there was some involvement of another vehicle. Do you know anything about that?
Well, all I know is that I, along with many other people, we received a WhatsApp message that the police were looking for a second white van, and a registration number was distributed with that description, asking people to look out for it. But that's as much as I know.
Well, Jim, thank you very much for bringing us up to date. That's Jim Kent from Barcelona City FM. Our senior correspondent, David Bowden, is at Sky News Centre and can bring us up to date with what we know.
Yeah, well, first of all, let's get news from the Foreign Office. The Foreign Office spokesman is saying that we are in contact with the Spanish authorities and seeking more information following an incident in Barcelona. Anyone in the area should follow the advice of the emergency services. Now, let's have a look at what we know about this incident so far. Clearly, we know it was in Barcelona. It happened at about 4:30. Police confirmed there was a massive crash. This is UK time in Barcelona, as we see there. If we move in, it was the Las Ramblas area. We know it's this huge boulevard that kind of moves right through the city, largely pedestrianized, lots of tourists there at that time. We had reports immediately of people killed and injured, and the numbers of dead and injured has gone up and down as the afternoon has progressed. Then we have police were calling the incident a terror attack. It took a while because at first there was always the semblance that it might just have been a horrible, horrible accident. That quickly was dismissed. And then shortly after 5 o'clock, it was gunfire reported near the market. Now, there is the La Boqueria market. We don't know who reported it, who it was supposed to be firing, and who they were firing at. What we do know is that police have been moving through the market in the last hour or so, presumably checking whether or not there are any people holed up there. You'll see them moving through, the front team obviously pointing frontwards, and then the others watching their back, because we know that there are 2 men holed up in a Turkish restaurant. Now, we're told they're armed. We don't know whether or not they have discharged their weapons at all yet. We don't know whether they are hiding from the authorities or they are threatening the hostages that they presumably have in this restaurant. What we do know is that there are probably only 2 people. One of them is the man who fled from the van. The other is presumably his accomplice. That's what we know, but it's clearly unfolding as we speak. Clearly, the police getting more and more of an angle on this as the time progresses. But it looks as though they have been evacuating the area so that if this thing goes really ugly and they end up in a firefight with these 2 armed men, then at least there are fewer people in the area potentially to get caught up in it, Neil.
David, many thanks. Well, as we look at live pictures, looking down towards the incident that took place, well, what must be a couple of hours ago now, in which 32 people have been injured, and it would appear several people have been killed. Let's once again speak to Mike Mawhinney, works here at Sky News. He's at the scene, joins us now on the line. Mike, just bring us up to date with what the mood is like where you are in the immediate aftermath of such a bloody incident.
Well, it's pretty calm at where I'm standing right now. The police seem to be a little bit relaxed than what they were before. Obviously, a lot more police have moved into the area. The specialist police teams have just pulled up in the last 20 minutes, unloaded a lot of kit, and they look like the type of teams that will certainly be clearing buildings or dealing with the siege situation. There's K9 on the street, and that's clearing the immediate vicinity on the Las Ramblas itself, and then a number of side streets. The side streets that run up the Las Ramblas are very tight, very narrow, and you have a number of people locked in their shops, restaurants, and their own buildings. But they are still hanging off their balconies and getting a bird's eye view, which has been allowed, and it means that the police seem to be relaxed in some manner about the situation.
Mike, you mentioned some specialist officers arriving with the sort of kit that you could clear buildings with. I presume you're talking about the type of stuff that you would see here being carried by armed response officers.
Yes, definitely. I mean, obviously, the person you were speaking to earlier was mentioning a number of, bodies of the police force here in Catalonia, and this team turned up, and obviously it's a very different unit, very professional looking, and they moved off quite quickly up one of the side streets. I'm about a block and a half from Plaza Catalunya, and they seem to be concentrating on a number of blocks just out of my sight as you look sort of north from, if your back's to the sea. They've reappeared at the moment, just right now as I speak. They seem to be organising other equipment, and who knows what's going to unfold. Just before I came on here, there was a number of people were pulled off La Rambla, a lot of bystanders and eyewitnesses, very distressed, people that were involved directly in the incident, maybe related to people that were injured, and they were escorted by the police and the ambulance services away off Las Ramblas and taken to a safe location.
Mike, for viewers that are just tuning in, give us an idea of just how quickly police and other emergency services arrived on the scene, and how quickly this cordon, this evacuation of the area was managed to be achieved.
Well, the reaction by all counts from witnesses that I've been speaking to here, they said that the reaction of the police was instantaneous. On foot, number of foot patrols chasing the vehicle down the street. I do not know if any shots were fired by the police, but there were certainly a number of police on foot chasing the vehicle. Obviously, they can't chase by car or motorcycle because it's very difficult, because obviously a number of people in the area. But their reaction was very quick, and sorry, I'm just getting pushed away by the police. Hold on. Sorry, mate. There we are. So their reaction was instantaneous from all accounts. They have responded by putting a lot of people on the street and creating a number of layers and a number of cordons around La Rambla to prevent any bystanders getting in the way.
Mike, for people who don't know the area, describe to us just how busy this place would have been. I mean, Barcelona, of course, a tourist destination, but it wouldn't just have been tourists milling in and around Las Ramblas.
Oh no, it is August. So a lot of people are away on their summer vacation. A lot of residents are away, but there's a lot of tourists coming into the city now. There's been a massive increase of tourism, and it's a very popular thoroughfare for tourists to walk and wander, and a lot of shopping areas off to the sides on both sides. So it is a really busy area. It's in fact an area that you actually, you struggle to walk through because the amount of people that are just moving in this area. So anything that's moving down that area, any fast-moving projectile like a motor vehicle, is certainly going to cause a hell of a lot of damage.
Mike, many thanks. We'll speak to you again a little bit later this evening. Of course, London, not that long ago itself, experienced a terror attack, the likes we appear to be witnessing in Barcelona. Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, has tweeted this: "My thoughts are with the victims of this barbaric terrorist attack in the great city of Barcelona and with their brave emergency services." Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, continues, "London stands with Barcelona against the evil of terrorism." Certainly in the immediate aftermath of the incident in the British capital, there were expressions of solidarity from around Europe and from further afield after there was an incident on London Bridge, then very quickly moved into Borough Market. It does appear that the Spanish emergency personnel have been preparing for an incident such as this. It is a city in the heart of the summer, a popular tourist destination. You would expect there to be a significant police presence on the streets, as indeed there is here in London, but additional personnel, ambulances, bomb disposal, all managed to make their way to the city centre in a matter of minutes. Some of them, it would appear, in just a handful of seconds they arrived. Began that process of cordoning off this particular part of Barcelona and moving people out of it. Let's return, shall we, to David Bowden, who's at the screen. And just again, David, try and focus for a moment on what we know about these two separate incidents. The incident, the first, of course, that group that was struck, that group of pedestrians that were struck, but then the occupants of that particular van then moved on pretty quickly. Just bring us up to date with what we know.
Okay, so this all started at about 4:30 UK time, when we found that there was what the police in Barcelona described as a massive crash. Then it wasn't described as a terror attack. Shortly thereafter it was. We can see Barcelona there, right on the coast. As we move on, we'll see that we can go right down into the area where it happened, Las Ramblas, this great boulevard through the city, which is largely pedestrianized, though there is one carriageway each way for vehicles coming and going. Clearly that is how this van, which we believe was a transit-type van, a minivan type thing, crashed into all these people. We then got reports that people were both killed and injured. So this was clearly a mass attack at the time, and very shortly thereafter, the police described it for the first time as a terror attack. Shortly after 5 o'clock, there were reports of gunfire. Now, nobody so far has told us who was shooting at who, or whether in fact this was actually gunfire. Remember, at this time, we're only half an hour in to this situation. There is chaos, a lot of frightened people. We do not know for a fact whether anything was actually fired at that time. What has been happening since is that they have been trying to track down the man who fled from the van, the driver of the van. And we also know that there are two men holed up in a Turkish restaurant. Now, police clearly will have their eyes on that, trying to find out what their intentions are. Are they simply sheltering there to get out of the way of the security services and have hostages, or are they in the throes of committing further atrocity? We can see from this vision here, which is from the minutes after the attack itself, that people were being moved from the area because, of course, whilst the place is now swarming with security personnel, the last thing they want is for people to get trapped quite literally in the line of fire if they start to having to move in on this restaurant, or if these two men come out either with hostages to run for it and there is a shootout. So a lot of chaos in the initial aftermath. It now seems to be much more organized, and two separate things going on. We have got police clearly working on the crime, the terror incident, if you like, but also a lot of people moving pedestrians, locals, shopkeepers out of harm's way, away from the area, so that the police can then move around and try and get an assessment of whether this situation is simply a siege down, they're going to have to sit it out for hours potentially, or whether or not they're going to have to move in and bring it to a close. All of those things being dealt with by senior officers at the scene. Meanwhile, the area itself, hopefully by now, largely clear of pedestrians, of tourists, of shopkeepers. Either they will have been taken to safety, or if they are too close to the restaurant, they will be told, stay where you are, close the doors, close the windows, get away from the doors and windows, and stay in the middle of your building, and we will take it from here. That's the situation as we know it, Neil, up to now.
David, many thanks. Well, a little earlier we told you that we were expecting an update from local police as to what happened here. It appears to be the case that we can't get that on camera, but the information is now beginning to trickle through. And as regards the death toll, it appears that for now at least, some of the reporting emerging from Spain may well have been slightly wide of the mark. A police official in Barcelona, according to the Associated Press, says that one death has been confirmed in the van attack. Now, that is not, of course, to say that that number may not rise. Indeed, the suspicion is that it will, and will significantly. But for now, the police official in Barcelona confirms one death as a result of that van mounting the pavement and ploughing into pedestrians. They also say, as we've been showing you at the bottom of your screen, some 32 people have been injured, 10 of them said to be suffering from serious injuries. And again, you can understand why that might be the case. This van, even if not travelling at significant speed, was moving from a road into a pedestrianised area, a place where people would have been milling around, enjoying the sunshine, shopping, talking about where to go for their dinner that evening. not certainly looking over their shoulder or looking to their left and right to protect again, to look out for traffic. And if they were there in numbers, a van of that size and travelling at any speed would certainly have caused a number of serious injuries. It may well be the case that 32, rather less than that may well have than could well have happened. Well, a little earlier we spoke to Lindsay Davidson, who was in the area when the incident happened.
So we were in a changing room in a shop called Pull and Bear in Las Ramblas, and we just were sort of waiting around, and then we saw loads of people sort of crowding out and like running out the door, and like initially we thought there was like a celebrity or something there, and then we just decided to wait for a few minutes just to see what it was, because everyone was just, they weren't too panicked, and then we decided to leave and we went out the shop, and there was police everywhere, ambulances, fire engines, like bomb disposal squads and stuff, and they were just directing everyone like to go as far away from the area as you could. So we're just back at our hotel now. They said it was the best thing to do, so yeah, it was pretty scary.
I can imagine, Lindsay. Just tell us a little bit more about what you saw when you left the shop. You mentioned it sounds like a huge amount of emergency service personnel brought in, but did you see any of those who were actually caught up in this crash? Any of the victims, the injured?
No, we didn't see any of the victims. We just saw people sort of running, like everyone sort of running with their kids and crying and stuff, like just trying to get as far away from the scene like as possible. We didn't actually see it happening.
And up until that point, this was just a normal summer's day in Barcelona?
Yeah, well, this morning we actually said to my sister, there does seem to be a lot of police about, but we just kind of thought, oh, just a precaution, isn't it? But I don't know if something had been tipped off or whatever, but we did think there was a lot of police about today.
And now that you're back in your hotel, we were just speaking to a colleague of mine who's actually in Barcelona at the moment, who's suggesting that people are being told to get indoors, to stay in their offices, to stay in their hotels. I mean, that I presume is the advice given to you as well.
Yeah, all the shops were like shutting their shutters down, and the cafes were sort of closing up as well. So I think everyone must be just given the same advice.
And have you been in Barcelona for longer than a day? I mean, I just want you to try and compare and contrast what you can see from your windows at the moment with what you might have seen yesterday at around the same time.
Yes, we've been here for a few days and everything was fine. We've been down the shopping. La Rambla were there last night, just like 2 nights ago, just kind of shopping and eating down that way, and everything was fine, like busy, but just normal. And then everything's just sort of chaos just now.
Well, clearly the situation in Barcelona, fast moving. A number of people, as we were just hearing, have been told to stay indoors. One of those is Shaul Hemel, who's the CEO and owner of an Israeli tourism company. He's been operating in Barcelona for the best part of 2 decades. Thanks very much for being with us, Shaul. Describe to us your situation at the moment. You're locked in your office.
Yes, good evening to all of us. But now we are locked at the building. We are not allowed to go out. All the area is covered by police and military forces. They are looking with guns to find all these attackers, and all this area is blocked. Nobody get in, nobody get out. Only police staff and the helicopters, and we are just waiting for the police instruction. And it's about 2 hours from the beginning of this event, and we are really shocked because it's the first time that happened in the heart of the commercial area of Barcelona. You know that Barcelona in August, it's millions of tourists that come to visit this beautiful city, and what happened now is going to change all the meaning of security here in this city, I believe. And as Israeli, I believe that they can make better security in this city because millions of tourists coming here and walking on the street. And what happened that this truck just getting the Ramblas. You know, the Ramblas is the main boulevard of Barcelona, in the heart of Barcelona, just smashing the people under the truck and get to the restaurant. It's like a jungle. It's impossible that it could happen here in this beautiful city of Barcelona. I'm in shock, really, and we are really worried because now we are blocked here and we don't know if you can go out or nobody can get in, and we are waiting to the police instruction. I can see from my window all is here very close.
Shaul, sorry to interrupt, Shaul. I just want to check something with you. You say Las Ramblas is, of course, the heart of Barcelona. It is, as we understand it, an area closed off to traffic, but it does appear that weren't any of those barriers, that blockades, the concrete blocks that you see in other cities around the world.
Coming now. Hablamos con Sky News. A momento, if you can wait a moment, because the police is coming now, and I just, yes, please. Moment.
Well, it appears that Shaul is just speaking to the police at the moment. Shaul's the owner of a tourism company, an Israeli tourism company, which has been based in Barcelona for the best part of 20 years. He's actually in his office. We'll try and come back to Shaul in just a moment. Instead, let's try and see if we can speak to David Liberson, who's the rabbi of Barcelona. Rabbi, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you very much for joining us. Just tell us what you have heard, what you have seen taking place in the center of Barcelona today.
I hear from the kosher restaurant that it was only 50 meters where the attack ends. The attack started on the beginning of the street and continued till the middle of the Ramblas, very near to the kosher restaurant called Maccabi. And I only can say that in the place that we were staying, so everyone is okay. The people there, they hear voices, and then the police almost immediately closed the kosher restaurant, and they still there actually because the police is closed all the Ramblas.
So tell us, just how quickly did you see a response from the emergency services, the police in particular?
I'm sorry?
How quickly did you begin to see a response from the police in terms of the numbers that we've seen in the footage that's emerged from Barcelona?
A few minutes. Took a good few minutes of that. I can say maybe took like 10 minutes. I don't know. Maybe 8 minutes, 10 minutes. I cannot say exactly, but it was not so fast.
Of course, as one of the religious leaders in Spanish life in Barcelona, what are your thoughts about what you have seen taking place today? Individuals deciding, with no regard for human life, to drive a van into people who are just out to do a bit of shopping on a sunny summer's day.
It's a very delicate situation. What is going to be next? So we are seeing that in all Europe happening these things, and no place is safe. So we are very concerned about it.
How can a city like Barcelona move on from an incident such as this, where people will very quickly start to draw their own conclusions, rightly or wrongly, about who is responsible and why they have acted in such a fashion?
I cannot say that nobody is responsible, but everybody of us, we are responsible regarding the place where we're living. So, but I cannot I cannot take conclusions so fast.
And have you ever seen anything of this type happening in any of the places that you have lived and worked? This terrorist attack, as it is now being called by Catalan police, taking place right in the beating heart of Barcelona?
Again, sorry, I couldn't hear you properly.
I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. It appears that the line's not great. David Liberson, Rabbi of Barcelona, thanks for being with us. Let's try and return to Shaul Hamill, the owner of a tourism company who's in Barcelona. Shaul, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, please.
Shaul, you were just speaking to the police.
Yes, just the police came now, knock on the door, and they're going to take us out from the building with the company up there. You understand? We can't stay here, so they take us now to the security area.
Shaul, remind us how close your office is Shaw, remind us just how close your office is to Las Ramblas.
Very, very close. You know, it's the main house of Barcelona. We are in Pelayo Street 42. You can see the pink building close to the Starbucks. And then, you understand? It's very close to the area. We was at the Starbucks when it happened. And we saw all the crowded running and what happened is terrible, really. Really terrible. We are going to get into elevator, so if it will be... Sorry. You can hear me?
We can still hear you, Shaw. So just take us back to that first moment, the first moment that you knew that something untoward was taking place. We'll cross our fingers that we can still hear you as you travel down in the lift. Maybe return to Shaw at a later point this evening as he leaves his building. He just telling us there that the police have come to let them out of their office building, one very, very close to where this terrorist act unfolded. Well, let's speak to Diana Daniels. She has been evacuated from a building near Las Ramblas in the last few minutes. Diana, tell us what you saw today, what you heard, and where you are now.
Thank you, Neil. I'm actually outside of Paseo de Gracia. Paseo de Gracia, just to put in reference, it's kind of like Rodeo Drive or Fifth Avenue in New York, you know. So we are at the beginning of Paseo de Gracia, which is basically by La Plaza Catalunya, next to Las Ramblas, where everything happened. It's just tragic because Barcelona is such a beautiful city. I'm an expat here. And it's usually so fantastic just to live here that we were so blessed that we didn't have this type of terrorist attack before. We were kind of like left out of the community to learn that this is happening. We all are like completely alarmed and sad.
Well, Diana, just describe to us what happened in the immediate aftermath. We were just looking at a bit of footage from your Twitter feed there of people rushing out of the area. When you realised that something was happening, what did you see then? Presumably large numbers of police and other emergency services.
You know, right. My office is actually, it's a very nice corner office with a big terrace, with the view directly into Paseo de Gracia and La Plaza Catalunya. So suddenly we heard all this screaming and yelling at people. Like, so we went and rushed to the terrace to see what's happening, and we saw all these people, tourists running with bags, moms, kids, everybody trying to find some shelter in some of the buildings around. So we didn't even know what was happening. We just saw like a massive amount of people trying to cover from something. We heard noise, like we were not sure it was like shots or some type of thing in there, but we didn't know at the moment. Everybody started calling us, and the phones started ringing, and they advised us that like a terrorist attack just occurred. We didn't know it was a bomb or what. Suddenly, like time passed. We learned basically it was somebody run over some people. That's basically how it happened.
The advice to you in the aftermath was to stay in that office of yours. You've only just been been allowed out.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's we've been under the lock for the past an hour and a half, and just now the police of Catalonia came and say that we need to evacuate immediately. So we just came out of the buildings, and that's how it basically happened. And many people probably, this is an area that is like full of tourists and hotels. So many of the people that are probably, their hotels are over there. They're just there waiting to see when can they cross the area. But it's about like a 4 blocks radio that you're not allowed to get in. Transportation has been shut down, especially subway and the bus system. So if you need to go somewhere, like my case, I need to go home. I need to walk home because there's no transportation available.
And Dana, just in terms of the feel of the city at the moment, of course, as you were mentioning there, a fairly sizable part of it has been cordoned off and evacuated. But where you are now, as it appears that we are getting further away, of course, from the incident itself, are tensions beginning to drop just a little?
Well, you know, it's weird because you don't see. I used to live in New York, so I've seen people getting like very in panic. But here, just like if you walk up a couple of blocks, life is a little bit normal. It's just difficult, as I said, to get transportation. But people seem relatively calm. You know, you see in the faces, obviously everybody on their phones with faces of concern and trying to figure out what is next. We don't know if at the end, I mean, the thing that we know is that somebody still had like kidnapping some people in a restaurant. So we don't know if that is completely true. We just don't know what it is. And I guess that we all are waiting for to see what happens. And we hope that they just capture these guys.
Well, do people in Spanish cities like Barcelona, do they spend much time thinking about the prospect of a terrorist attack such as this? I mean, certainly here in London, you know, it happened, but, you know, people do not walk around cowed. They still get on public transport. They still go out and see their friends of an evening. It doesn't change the way that we live our lives here. Do you think it's the same thing in Barcelona?
To tell you the truth, I know that people from different countries that live here, we always felt blessed that things like this never happened in Spain at all. Forget Barcelona, but in general, Spain. So I'm not sure what is going to happen tomorrow. For sure, we're going to be a little bit more conscious about it. We were just happy that we were not touched by terrorism, you know. And Barcelona has become a hub for startups doing many things. For instance, we are in the mobile application business. So you see people from many parts of the world that they not only come for tourism, but also for work, because it's a safe place to be. And it's a beautiful place to be. So it's heartbreaking to know that this is happening.
Diana Daniels, many thanks for being with us, and do stay safe.
Thank you.
Let's once again speak to our senior correspondent, David Bowden, who's at the screen and can take us through events as we understand them. It's a difficult picture, isn't it, to keep entirely across, David? We keep getting just fresh snippets of information, fresh bits of footage showing the police operation on the ground.
Yeah, and remember, this is unfolding as we speak, but it's been going on for about 2 hours now. Where are we talking about? Well, of course, we're talking about Barcelona, and it was about 4:30 UK time that the police there then described a massive crash. Note, no talk of terrorism on the initial reports. As we move on, we can go down into the map and find out where all this was happening. It's in Las Ramblas, this big boulevard through the city where largely pedestrianized, but traffic is allowed up both sides. Clearly, that is how this van got into all these people. And we were getting reports pretty quickly of people killed and injured. Then, as we move on and show you more detail, the police finally called it a terror incident. That was the first time we heard the T word. It became clear that this wasn't an accident, that this was something that was orchestrated and a terror incident. And I think if we move on the graphic, we can go right into the La Buquera market. There were reports that there was gunfire from that area. What we can't ascertain, and nobody appears to have ascertained, is whether or not that is true, and whether or not that was terrorists firing at police, police firing at terrorists. What we do know subsequently is that the man who was driving the van fled from the scene on foot. And we now think he is one of 2 men inside a restaurant who are armed. Again, what we don't know is whether or not they have hostages in that restaurant, whether if they do have hostages, there's half a dozen staff, or the place was packed. That sort of information is still being kept from us. What we do know is that whilst the police have cleared the area, and we've seen lots and lots of picture of police cordons going up, we've seen lots of picture of police ushering people away from shops, from cafes, from offices in the immediate area of this restaurant, so they can sanitize it and they can maintain a cordon around where we believe the now 2 terrorists are holed up. There was some talk earlier about a second van, which may have been a getaway vehicle. It now transpires that that van has been spotted some 40 miles away. So it clearly wasn't the getaway vehicle, but may have something to do with this plot in a more wider sense. So as we look at this scene now, people clearly largely out of the area, apart from the man with the beard, and we can see police looking fairly relaxed inside that cordon. We've already seen picture from people who were inside their buildings, shooting out of their windows with their cameras, and we've seen armed police moving in alleyways, ushering people out, making sure there was no danger in there, and we now have this situation where police have the area effectively locked down. As we can see now, you can see people, this is earlier from Barcelona, people in alleyways being moved away when it's safe by police, because what they don't want is if this turns nasty and it ends up in a shootout between them and the terrorists, they desperately do not want innocent bystanders in the line of fire, quite literally. So they need to get as many people out of there as possible while they lock it down. And then we move into a phase where somebody has to decide, do we sit and wait for these people to come out or to do something else? Or do we think the situation is so tense that we really need to storm this restaurant and get in there and bring this to a close? But of course that has the danger of costing other people their lives. Neil.
David, many thanks. Well, we can bring you some pictures now from the immediate aftermath. Now, although we have extensively blurred them, please be aware that they are very graphic indeed. Now, as you can see, people here are very seriously wounded, just lying on the ground. A lot of people, as you can see, helping the wounded, and some people, in fact, you could see at the back of the shot, still running away from the attack. Now, again, some more graphic images here, more seriously injured people, and you have to say that perhaps some of these individuals suffering even worse than that. Everyone surrounded by passers-by trying to help them, many people standing dazed and confused. Now, we are hearing that one suspect may have been arrested. That, according to the Spanish public broadcaster RTVE. Just to reiterate that line, the Spanish public broadcaster RTVE says that one suspect in the attack has been arrested. We're just going to take a look at that. But a little earlier, we spoke to Amar Anwar, a human rights lawyer, caught up in the aftermath of the attack. This is what he had to say about his experience in Barcelona a little earlier on today.
I was about to sit down and have something to eat. The place was jam-packed with thousands of tourists and local people. It was so packed, decided that I would carry on, try and find somewhere quiet, which I have to say is pretty impossible in Las Ramblas because it was a beautiful summer's day when it was, and it's thousands and thousands of tourists. And like I'd walked on about 5-10 seconds, and the next thing is I hear a crashing noise, then I hear screams, and it was almost like an avalanche. You just saw people. I turned around and looked, and people were running. I started to run. People in front of me started to run. Hundreds just started running down the street. People were screaming. What stands out for me was this woman who was screaming for her kids because she couldn't see them. And there was a young, I think it was a Bengali man who was running behind me. Eventually I came to stop about 10, 20 seconds probably later, a few hundred meters down, just to see what was happening. And the man had stopped to speak to his friend, and he was speaking away in Bengali. I could understand some of it. I asked him if he spoke Urdu. He then said to me he'd seen a man in the van drive into the crowd, and the guy was very upset because he said he thought 5 or 6 people were very seriously injured. And again, then people started to panic, started to run. The police were instantaneously on the scene. I mean, the scene is heavily policed anyway by uniformed and by plainclothes officers, but I mean, the area was swamped. Within probably 30 seconds, we had officers out with guns who were very jittery, telling us to move back. There was panic. People were jumping into shops. And then I saw that woman again, the one who'd been screaming for her kids. A police officer took her away, and
some of the shopkeepers started pulling up the shutters, and we getting pushed back. I'm down now probably about 600 meters away, further on down. We've been pushed back about 6 times, and I've seen so many ambulances. I mean, every few minutes there's another ambulance goes by, but and I've seen some ambulances going away. So everybody's just shaken and I think horrified. It was just, the place was mobbed. It was just full of thousands of tourists, families and kids. I just stepped into a shop to look at a Barcelona top for my son, thinking I needed to bring him out here. So other kids. So just horrific.
I can understand you. You've been caught up in this event, and where you are, I would be feeling rather nervous and worried myself. I just wondered, we spoke a little earlier to someone else who was in Barcelona today who suggested that ahead of the incident, even before anything took place, she felt like there was quite a substantial police presence in and around the city centre. What's your view on that?
I don't know. I mean, sadly, the way things are, I would expect there to be substantial police presence in any major city throughout Europe, especially Barcelona, which is, huge tourist attraction. So one would expect it to be. And to be honest, I mean, I came many years ago to Barcelona, probably over a decade ago, but I have to say that, yes, there was a high police presence, but no more than any other major city. In Las Ramblas, anyway, from my understanding, is heavily policed anyway, because one of the advice you're always given is every time I was coming out here, people were saying, watch out for pickpockets. So there's plainclothes officers and uniform officers. But I think the response from the emergency services within literally 30 seconds, I don't think you can fault the emergency services in the way they responded, but the fact that they did respond in such a heavy manner points towards the fact that either it's a case of they probably, like sadly every other nation in Europe, has had to train for this, that they've trained for this, or they were on a high alert. But I think most nations throughout Europe are on high alert at this point in time, so you would expect the emergency services sadly to have to prepare for something like this. The shocking part, I suppose, that drove it home within the space of a few minutes was that I was just hoping that, if this was a crash or something like that, but the way that the police, emergency services, the helicopters in the sky, the guns, pushing back, and the jitteriness of the police officers, and the fact that there is a search now going on for the individual, for the terrorist, it brought home that, this is a terrorist attack that's taking place.
Well, that was lawyer Amar Anwar describing his experiences very, very close to the initial incident, which Catalan police, for the time being at least, are suggesting killed one individual, has injured at least 32, and of those 32, 10 of them seriously. And well, joining us to discuss this, the security expert Chris Phillips is in the studio with me. Chris, we're here again, aren't we? Once again, someone in a vehicle moving from a road to a pedestrianised area, pavement in the case of London Bridge, here a shopping street. Frankly, I'm surprised that the death toll and the injured is not substantially higher.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's no surprise, actually, that it's on the most well-known street in Barcelona, because, of course, that will have people from all different nationalities. So it brings the international feel about this. Just as we had in London, a main tourist zone, main tourist area is attacked, and it's such a simple thing to do and almost impossible to stop. But of course, it's absolutely deadly.
We've heard from Catalan police that there were protocols in place, that they clearly had a plan, and you can understand why, given how regularly we have seen attacks of this type. I mean, what is your assessment of the way in which they've responded?
Well, of course, this street has huge numbers of police officers. It's an actual crime area, high crime area, Les Ramblas, and of course, there's lots of police officers there. And of course, with what's happened in Nice and London and Paris and other places, they will also have, hopefully, a decent plan in place to deal with an incident such as this. But of course, it always takes time, and when something like this happens, potentially the whole thing is over in less than a couple of minutes. So the police to react, even though they're in the same street, is really difficult for them.
And in terms of the operation, it appears, obviously, the immediate reaction is to find out if there is anyone in that van. But very quickly after that, we saw a cordon put in place. What is the purpose of that?
Well, the whole point is to confine the area. So, I mean, actually, that vehicle could have an explosive in it. We don't know. This terrorist could actually have guns. We don't know. So the police officers have got to literally confine that in close location and identify any suspects, whilst being very worried that that vehicle may have explosives in it. So moving people away whilst not allowing the suspect to escape is key.
And again, details very thin on the ground at the moment, but from the footage that we've seen of armed police moving, not at pace, but very slowly through the streets in and around the marketplace, it does appear that we have moved from an incident involving pedestrians on the streets to something of a manhunt. Now, how do you conduct an operation such as that when you don't know who you're looking for or indeed where to find them?
And that's the key point. They don't know who this person looks like. They do have some CCTV there, but not on the same basis as we have in the UK. It's actually identifying that person because, of course, as soon as they jump out the van and jump in amongst the crowds, they could easily be allowed out of the cordon area and away and to escape. So it's really difficult. The police obviously still believe there's a very good chance that that person or those people are still within that area because they're being very cagey about how they conduct the search of the area. And search they must, and it will take an awful long time to clear an area as big as the Rambla and the surrounding areas.
Just looking here at the footage on the screen, clearly they are moving with some purpose, but these it appear are just ordinary police officers.
Yeah, the police officers in Spain are all armed, of course, ours aren't. So individually they can go looking for a suspect. It's also interesting actually that all the shutters are down on the market, which tends to make you think that the market stallholders had some time to get it down before they evacuated.
Chris, many thanks. We will speak to you again next hour, but the latest from the Spanish city of Barcelona is that a terrorist attack has taken place and at least one person is dead. You're watching Sky News Tonight at 7 o'clock with breaking news from Barcelona. A van has crashed into crowds in the heart of the city's historic Las Ramblas district. Police have confirmed at least one person has died and more than 30 have been injured in what is now being treated as a terrorist attack. Two men, including the driver of the van, have barricaded themselves inside a restaurant. Good evening. Well, as we've been reporting, a van has driven into crowds in Barcelona's Las Ramblas, a famous tourist district. Police say they're treating the incident in the Catalan city as a terrorist attack. At least one person is confirmed dead. Local media has, however, been reporting that the death toll could be as high as 13. Dozens have certainly been injured, including at least 10 of them seriously. The driver of the van and one other individual are said to be holed up inside a restaurant and potentially armed. However, local media is now reporting that one suspect has been arrested. Our senior correspondent, Ian Woods, has the very latest.
Screams, panic, sirens. Victims lying on the ground, bystanders shocked and confused as to what to do to help. The familiar aftermath of a terrorist attack with a vehicle weaponized to kill pedestrians. We've blurred the images of the casualties, but there were many. It looks as if some had been thrown into market stalls by the force of the impact. It appears the white van may have travelled several hundred meters along the city's most popular thoroughfare before finally coming to a halt. Any thought that this could simply be a road traffic accident ended with the sight of armed police swarming through the area looking for suspects. It was late afternoon and the historic Las Ramblas district was packed as usual with locals and tourists. The central strip is pedestrianised, but cars are permitted to travel either side. As the dead and injured lay where they'd been hit, those who'd had a narrow escape tried to get to safety.
All of a sudden sort of heard a crashing noise and the whole street just started to run, screaming. I saw a woman next to me screaming for her kids. Police were very, very quickly there. Police officers with guns, vans everywhere, and then the whole street started getting pushed back. You'd see like chaos at the top, like just cars, etc. And couldn't tell what was happening. And then a shopkeeper who was running down this way, the police officers who got there just started screaming at people to move back, move back.
Suddenly just people started running towards us, screaming and shouting, run, run, run. So, I grabbed the two girls, and there was an orange phone shop was open. We ran inside, and they locked the doors of the phone shop.
Police ordered nearby metro and train stations to close. It wasn't immediately clear whether this was to avoid people getting in the way of the emergency response, but then came word that one or more suspects may be holed up in a nearby bar. The authorities confirmed it was being treated as a terrorist incident.
I spoke with police who were very nervous and turning tourists away, saying that there's a fugitive on the loose around here, and that was dangerous to stay around.
Catalan police say the death toll is expected to rise. Ian Woods, Sky News.
Well, these are live pictures from the heart of Barcelona, where, as you can see, many police officers still on the streets, and in parts of this, the heart of the city, the evacuation process is still ongoing. Many reports of people still confined to their offices, to their homes, to the many restaurants and bars that are in and around the area. We have heard from the President of the United States in the past couple of minutes, on Twitter, of course. The United States condemns the terror attack in Barcelona, Spain, says the US President, and will do whatever is necessary to help. Donald Trump concludes, "Be tough and strong. We love you." Our senior correspondent, David Bowden, is at the Sky News Centre and can bring us up to date with what we know.
Okay, let's go back to the beginning. We're in Barcelona, of course, we know that. The first we heard that anything was going wrong was at 4:30 UK time, when police confirmed what they called then a massive crash. It was shortly thereafter that we knew that it was in the Las Ramblas area, this huge boulevard that goes all the way through, as you can see there, very wide. It's largely pedestrianised, but there are carriageways up and down for vehicles. Clearly, that's how this van got in there and, of course, damaged so many people. We got reports that people had been killed and injured pretty shortly after the initial report of the massive crash. But then, minutes or so later, we had police calling it a terror attack. And there was also gunfire reported at a nearby La Boquera market. Now, what is unclear is whether or not that report was factual or whether it was somebody mistaken, because we can't ascertain whether or not those were terrorists potentially firing at police, or police at terrorists, or in fact nobody was shooting at anybody. What we do know is that we've now got two armed men thought to be holed up in a Turkish restaurant in that Boquera district. Neil.
David, many thanks. Of course, this is a fast-moving and developing story. There have been pictures emerge from the immediate aftermath of the attack. I should say this, although we have extensively blurred them, please be warned that they are very graphic indeed. Now, as you can see in just a moment, the people in these pictures are very seriously injured and dotted around, of course. A lot of people at the scene staying put and helping the wounded. Some people shown, in fact, still running away from what we believe to be the site of the attack. We have some other pictures as well. A warning again, these are graphic images showing the immediate aftermath of the attack. And yet again, more seriously injured victims, or perhaps even worse. Everyone, though, surrounded by passers-by, not members of the emergency services, just ordinary people who've stopped to try and help. Many others, though, standing looking dazed and confused. As we continue to monitor live pictures from the heart of Barcelona. A couple of hours ago, I spoke to Amar Anwar. Now, he's a human rights lawyer who was caught up in the aftermath of the attack. He told me what he saw and heard.
I was about to sit down and have something to eat. The place was jam-packed with thousands of tourists and local people. It was so packed, decided that I would carry on, try and find somewhere quiet, which I have to say is pretty impossible in Las Ramblas because it was a beautiful summer's day, or it was, and it's thousands and thousands of tourists. And like I'd walked on about 5-10 seconds, the next thing is I hear a crashing noise, then I hear screams, and it was almost like an avalanche. I just saw People, I turned around and looked, and people were running. I started to run. People in front of me started to run. Just hundreds just started running down the street. People were screaming. What stands out for me was this woman who was screaming for her kids because she couldn't see them. And there was a young, I think it was a Bengali man who was running behind me. Eventually, I came to stop about 10, 20 seconds probably later, a few hundred meters down, just to see what was happening. And the man had stopped to speak to his friend, and he was speaking away in Bengali. I could understand some of it. I asked him if he spoke Urdu. He then said to me he'd seen a man in the van drive into the crowd, and the guy was very upset because he said he thought 5 or 6 people were very seriously injured. And again, then people started to panic, started to run. The police were instantaneously on the scene. I mean, the scene is heavily policed anyway by uniformed and by plainclothes officers, but I mean, the area was swamped. Within probably 30 seconds, we had officers out with guns who were very jittery, telling us to move back. There was panic. People were jumping into shops. And then I saw that woman again, the one who'd been screaming for her kids. A police officer took her away, and some of the shopkeepers started pulling up the shutters, and we kept getting pushed back. I'm down now probably about 600 meters away, further on down. We've been pushed back about 6 times, and I've seen so many ambulances. I mean, every few minutes there's another ambulance goes by, but and I've seen some ambulances going away. So everybody's just shaken and I think horrified. It was just, the place was mobbed. It was just full of thousands of tourists, families and kids. I just stepped into a shop to look at a Barcelona top for my son, thinking I needed to bring him out here. So other kids. So just horrific.
I can understand you. You've been caught up in this event, and where you are, I would be feeling rather nervous and worried myself. I just wondered, we spoke a little earlier to someone else who was in Barcelona today who suggested that ahead of the incident, even before anything took place, she felt like there was quite a substantial police presence in and around the city centre. What's your view on that?
I don't know. I mean, sadly, the way things are, I would expect there to be substantial police presence in any major city throughout Europe, especially Barcelona, which is, huge tourist attraction. So one would expect it to be. And to be honest, I mean, I came many years ago to Barcelona, probably over a decade ago, but I have to say that, yes, there was a high police presence, but no more than any other major city. And Las Ramblas, anyway, from my understanding, is heavily policed anyway, because one of the advice you're always given is every time I was coming out here, people were saying, watch out for pickpockets. So there's plainclothes officers and uniform officers. But I think the response from the emergency services within literally 30 seconds, I don't think you can fault the emergency services in the way they responded, but the fact that they did respond in such a heavy manner points towards the fact that either it's a case of they probably, like sadly every other nation in Europe has had to train for this, that they've trained for this, or they were on a high alert. But I think most nations throughout Europe are on high alert at this point in time, so you would expect the emergency services sadly to have to prepare for something like this. The shocking part, I suppose, that drove it home within the space of a few minutes was that I was just hoping that, if this was a crash or something like that, but the way that the police, emergency services, the helicopters in the sky, the guns, pushing back, and the jitteriness of the police officers, and the fact that there is a search now going on for the individual and for the terrorist, it brought home that, this is a terrorist attack that's taking place.
Amar Anwar there speaking to us from Barcelona. He'd been in the city, he's a human rights lawyer, he'd been in the city for a conference and found himself caught up in what appears to be a very bloody terrorist incident. Certainly it is being treated as a terrorist incident by Catalan police. We've actually had some updates of significance from the police there. Of course, as we've been reporting, one man linked to the Barcelona attack, we are hearing, has been arrested by the police. But in addition to that, now we have been reporting reports from local media about the possibility of armed individuals making their way into a restaurant or a bar. Catalan police have said in reaction to those reports that there is no one held up in a bar in Barcelona. It may well be the case that we are actually at the end point of this terrorist attack, given that one individual is in custody. No confirmation of that, and certainly do not take it as read. We're also receiving updates from a variety of concerned individuals. Earlier we heard from the Mayor of London, we heard from the President of the United States. We have also heard from Theresa May, the Prime Minister. She said her thoughts are with the victims of the terrible attack in Barcelona, adding this: the UK stands with Spain against terror. Well, let's discuss events in Barcelona and possible implications elsewhere with Chris Phillips, formerly head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office. Chris, it's really good to see you again. Let us start with that latest that we've heard from Catalan police. Local reports suggesting, you know, we could be seeing a death toll into death figures. Officially, though, it remains at 1. The expectation is, however, given just how packed this part of Barcelona is, that will rise.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that's going to be the case. That is one of the most populated, the most people on that street of any in Barcelona and in Europe. So the fact that a vehicle has gone down through the middle of that is almost certainly going to cause a big loss of life.
And we were discussing this as we were listening to Amaranwa, that the fact is that the Catalan police have said there is no one, armed or otherwise, holed up in a restaurant somewhere in Barcelona. You can understand how quickly nuggets of misinformation make their way into the hands of local media, and you know, it's essentially, as you said, Chinese whispers, isn't it?
Yeah, you'll always get Chinese whispers. Bear in mind that this is a position of chaos with everyone at high stress, and someone tells someone something, and immediately that's a fact. So we have got to bear that in mind. Maybe it was only one person involved in this terrorist attack, but we don't know, and that's something that the police over there are going to have to work hard on, identifying who the suspect is, who his contacts are, just to try and find out whether this is a one-off attack or maybe the start of a series.
Let's talk, shall we, for a moment about what we have seen. And this is a style of attack that we have seen in a variety of locations now around Europe, including, of course, London, the London Bridge attack that then spilled over into Borough Market. We can't protect ourselves entirely against this type of attack, can we?
No, we foresaw that vehicles would be used in terrorist attacks many years ago. In fact, we've had vehicle bombs going off in the UK many times, as they have in Spain, actually. But of course, there's very little that you can do to someone who perhaps gets in a van, even steals a van, drives it down one of the main roads and knocks people over. Even if you put vehicle mitigation measures in on every pavement in the city, in every city, of course people have still got to cross the road, so it's pretty much impossible to have 100% security, which is why we do need the intelligence and the information beforehand to stop them before they get to the van stage.
But it is quite something, isn't it, that we are living in a time when your immediate reaction to hearing that a van has struck pedestrians in any part of Europe is not to think, you know, someone has lost control of a vehicle, perhaps even drink driving. Our first reaction now is to assume this may well be a terrorist attack. We know, of course, that it is. Catalan police say that the individual that they have arrested, they are treating as a terrorist. But in terms of what we have seen, we do understand that Catalan police have protocols in place that they are following. How do you assess their response?
Well, this is one of the most well-policed streets in the world, I should think, because of the high crime rate. So there's never going to be a shortage of police officers in the vicinity. How they manage the situation, we'll have to look at in the future. I'm sure it's very difficult once a vehicle's in motion to bring that vehicle to a halt. And I imagine that this attack probably only lasted for a couple of minutes in total. So we mustn't get into the realms of have they done well, haven't they done well. Sure. We'll find that out when we find out whether this person's been arrested, what his history is, and whether he should have been stopped before that.
Just explain to us, though, that there was clearly a priority for the emergency services there was to establish a cordon, not simply a 50-metre cordon around the vehicle itself, but a fairly substantial cordon in the heart of, you know, one of Europe's busiest, most metropolitan cities. What is the thinking, the strategy behind that?
So what you're trying to do is create an island site which you can control. Now, if they were pretty convinced that the terrorist was within that island site, they knew that that terrorist would have to come out and hopefully be arrested as they came out. Of course, with a situation like this, usually it takes 20 minutes to form this cordon, but because of the street it was, I think they were able to do it very quickly, which may be the reason that they've managed to catch this this terrorist. But the whole point is that you don't know exactly what the threat is. That vehicle could still be a threat. It could still have explosives in it. There could be other people in the van. There may be another van involved. So the police have to work on these assumptions and make sure that they protect and control the area that the threat is in.
How does one practice for an event such as this? Do you have, essentially, do you take over a section of a town and run essentially a role-playing exercise? Is that
yeah, absolutely. And certainly the firearms officers in the UK do this on a regular basis. They will do house-to-house search in practice. And we are lucky in the UK. We've got a fairly small number of armed officers, but they're very highly trained. Of course, in other countries where every officer has to carry a gun, they have less training. They can be, I wouldn't say untrained, but very much less trained than our specialists. And so what you'll see is people pulling their revolvers out as an example in order to protect themselves if they see someone. Of course, you wouldn't have that in the UK. You'd rely on a response and officers coming in with guns.
I mean, is there an argument then in the United Kingdom? The footage we're looking at the moment are clearly armed response officers. They're carrying their rifles rather than the sidearms that you would see from ordinary police officers. But the two gentlemen that we're looking at the moment are carrying sidearms. Is there now an argument that we would given the frequency with which we're seeing incidents such as this take place, is there an argument for having more weapons on the streets of London?
I think I'm of an age and of an era, I think, that says the less guns you have on the streets, the less people will be shot. However, I think circumstances may push us down that route, particularly if these terrorist attacks carry on. And it was said only just a few days ago by the ex-head of MI5 that this is a 20 or 30-year problem that we've got in front of us. And you can expect to see the terrorist attacks alter, change, and unfortunately will almost certainly get worse. I mean, however bad this is, it could have been so much worse if the vehicle was containing explosives. It's as simple as that. And we have to bear in mind that this is an evolving threat and one that we have to give our police officers the right protection.
Still, one imagines that in Barcelona there will be, as there has been in the aftermath of the London Bridge attack, a reappraisal of what measures can be put in place to try and guard against incidents of this type. I mean, what can be done? I mean, you can't guard against the risk 100%, but there are some steps.
Well, I can tell you what we did in 2005 in the UK, because I think that's a good way to look at this. What we did, we risk assessed and analysed the most likely targets for terrorists. And actually, if you look at the terrorist attacks that have taken place in London and other places, they would all certainly have been up at the top end of the spectrum of likely targets. And then you put defensive measures in those locations. Now, some of those defensive measures may be just the inability to get vehicles onto the pavement. As an example, Whitehall has got very good vehicle defences, as have a lot of our key locations in the UK. But that will never give you 100% security because, of course, not only do the people have to cross the road at some stage, but also there are other roads, and you cannot protect every road, every street in the UK, in Barcelona, or any other major city. What we have to do is make sure that communities are coming forward with the intelligence that tells us that these people are likely to do this.
Chris, for now, thanks very much indeed. As we continue to look at live pictures, and clearly there is a huge amount of interest as to what is going on the other side of that cordon there. Clearly something of interest happening in this part of Barcelona. I just want to read you something that we've received from Natasha Drunicki. Now, she's a journalist who now lives in Barcelona, and her boyfriend, Alberto, was actually in a bar, was in the Berlinale bar where he works as a waiter. Now, he doesn't speak any English, but he has said, but she has told us what he saw. These are Natasha's words. He heard a huge commotion and a lot of noise. A large amount of people suddenly came into the bar with their hands over their mouths, obviously in shock. This, of course, is a bar very, very close to Las Ramblas. He walked out into the street where he realised something terrible was going on. They screamed at him to close the doors. They are still shut in the bar. He could hear the police moving down the street outside the bar, shouting at people to stay where they are and not go out as the police searched. Everyone was terrified. And as we've seen, helicopters are still flying overhead. we will in just a moment replay a conversation I had with Jim Kent. He works is the owner of Barcelona at City FM. Before we do, that interview was quite a lot earlier on this afternoon. We just want to remind you of what we have heard in the last hour or so, which may well be different information. In fact, just now we have heard from a Catalan government official on Twitter signalling that indeed 13 people have died and at least 50 people have been injured in that attack. Just, Chris, whilst we have you here, why might there be this disparity between the figure that we're hearing from the Catalan police and that we are hearing now from a local government official? Presumably, there are different processes to be followed by the police force.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, they don't want to commit themselves to people, the numbers too early, because, of course, the numbers can go up and down. And they don't actually know where the victims, many of the victims may have gone. Some will have gone to different hospitals. So they're trying to get this information together. And the one thing that you don't want to do in an incident like this is put out inaccurate figures. So the police will be working overtime to try and make sure that they can identify exact numbers that they can definitely say that person's dead, that person's injured. And bringing that together is something that takes a few hours.
Indeed. Well, again, just to remind you, as to the very latest that we've heard, a Catalan government official has now said on Twitter 13 people have been killed as a result of the incident in Las Ramblas. At least 50 injured, and earlier we heard at least 10 of that number seriously injured. And again, just to remind you as to the information that has been emerging in the past few moments, one individual, we are told by Catalan police, is now in custody. And earlier reports of 2 people, armed or otherwise, being holed up in a bar somewhere. Catalan police telling us that that is simply not the case. As I was mentioning a little earlier, we heard from Jim Kent from Barcelona City FM, who was on Las Ramblas just a few minutes after the incident took place.
We were at the base of Las Ramblas, so we are backwards to the Mediterranean, looking up the Las Ramblas. When we arrived 20 minutes after the incident. It was pretty deserted of the many thousands of people that would normally be there. We heard from an eyewitness that confirmed it was a white Mercedes transit van that had driven approximately maybe 150, 200 meters down Las Ramblas, down the pedestrian part of the center. And then initially, you're as up to date as we are on the number of fatalities. Subsequently, we also got messages. There's a WhatsApp message being sent around Barcelona about this hunt for the second white van that was rented, apparently by the same person that rented the initial van. And that message has been distributed on now Spanish media as well. At the base of Las Ramblas, where we are, there was at least maybe 8 or 9 ambulances that are waiting. With a team of maybe 40 paramedics, not clear what they're waiting for. But they were not rushing to attend injured. It seems as though they had another objective, or maybe perhaps just being prepared for the worst. In terms of the people running away, as you mentioned, we also heard stories of the 2 people running away. The hostage incident, that's currently a little bit unclear what was happening. That's at the other end of Las Ramblas from where we are, so I can't provide any other insights into that. Other than to say, we understand that the manhunt is continuing for the perpetrator.
Just describe for us, if you can. I mean, how busy would that pedestrianised area have been? Where we're hearing from Catalan police, 32 people have been injured, 10 of them seriously. I mean, that, in any town centre, that would be a significant number. But it would appear that there must have been hundreds of people milling around this particular part of Barcelona at that time.
Correct. There would definitely have been hundreds of people. So, in fact, in some ways, maybe 1 or 2 small mercies that it wasn't worse than what you're describing there. I mean, I understand that after the impact, there was a very loud bang when the van came to a halt, and that also triggered many people to run away from the incident, obviously in fear, as in they weren't clear exactly what that bang was.
At first glance, it appears that Barcelona has been pretty well prepared for an incident such as this. The police force telling us that they pretty quickly enacted the protocols that were in place. You've been there for a lot longer. Just tell us, John, in terms of, Jim, just tell us, how does it look to a bystander? The police have clearly been planning for something like this.
Sorry, I only just half heard you there because I've got some police noise behind me. But as far as I understand, generally, Spain does take terrorism seriously. There's a lot of armed police on the streets. So in terms of uniform protection, that's something that you have to say that they are prepared in that sense. Of course, they do have 4 different police forces governing it. Sometimes there can be interesting discussions about which police force has jurisdiction over what particular event. But nevertheless, I think you'd have to say, from what we can see, the police have responded quickly. And as I speak to you, more ambulances are arriving as I speak to you here at the base of Las Ramblas.
Jim, we've had some detail coming predominantly from El País newspaper about a second van, that there was some involvement of another vehicle. Do you know anything about that?
Well, all I know is that I, along with many other people, we received a WhatsApp message that the police were looking for a second white van, and a registration number was distributed with that description, asking people to look out for it. But that's as much as I know.
We'll continue to keep an eye on these live pictures from the heart of Barcelona as the sun starts to head down there. We have been hearing from a number of political figures in the aftermath of the incident in Barcelona. The very latest of those, the U.S. Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, has been offering America's support to Spain. He was speaking to the media alongside his Japanese counterpart in Washington. Both condemned the attack in Barcelona.
We offer our condolences to the loss of life and the injuries that have occurred to so many innocent people yet again. We will continue to monitor the situation. We stand ready to assist law enforcement, national security authorities in Spain. Our consulates in Barcelona and our entire Mission Spain team are currently assisting Americans in Spain who are affected by these events. We ask U.S. citizens in the area to let your loved ones know you are safe. Terrorists around the world should know the United States and our allies are resolved to find you and bring you to justice.
The U.S. Secretary of State there repeating the advice from the State Department. American citizens being advised by their equivalent to the Foreign Office, the same advice as the FCO, to stay indoors and to stay away from the Las Ramblas district. We've also now heard in just the past couple of minutes from Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor. She has said the following. In fact, that she says that Barcelona is a revolting attack. We'll have more from the German Chancellor in just a moment. But for viewers just tuning in, a reminder of the breaking news this evening. A van has driven into crowds in Barcelona's Las Ramblas, a famous tourist district. Thousands of people would have been there this afternoon. Police say that they are treating the incident in the Catalan city as a terrorist attack. At least 13 people have died, according to a local government official. Dozens have been injured, including at least 10 seriously. We have heard from Catalan police that one suspect being treated as a terrorist has now been arrested and is in custody. Our senior correspondent Ian Woods brings us the very latest.
Screams, panic, sirens. Victims lying on the ground, bystanders shocked and confused as to what to do to help. The familiar aftermath of a terrorist attack with a vehicle weaponized to kill pedestrians. We've blurred the images of the casualties, but there were many. It looks as if some had been thrown into market stalls by the force of the impact. It appears the white van may have traveled several hundred meters along the city's most popular thoroughfare before finally coming to a halt. Any thought that this could simply be a road traffic accident ended with the sight of armed police swarming through the area looking for suspects. It was late afternoon and the historic Las Ramblas district was packed as usual with locals and tourists. The central strip is pedestrianized, but cars are permitted to travel either side. As the dead and injured lay where they'd been hit, those who'd had a narrow escape tried to get to safety.
All of a sudden, sort of heard a crashing noise, and the whole street just started to run, screaming. I saw a woman next to me screaming for her kids. Police were very, very quickly there. Police officers with guns, vans everywhere, and then the whole street started getting pushed back. You'd see like chaos at the top, like just cars, etc. And couldn't tell what was happening. And then a shopkeeper who was running down this way, the police were The police officers who got there just started screaming at people to move back, move back.
Suddenly, just people started running towards us, screaming and shouting, "Run, run, run!" So, I grabbed the two girls, and there was an orange phone shop was open. We ran inside, and they locked the doors of the phone shop.
Police ordered nearby metro and train stations to close. It wasn't immediately clear whether this was to avoid people getting in the way of the emergency response. But then came word, since denied, that one or more suspects may have been holed up in a nearby bar. The authorities confirmed it was being treated as a terrorist incident.
I spoke with police who were very nervous and turning tourists away, saying that there's a fugitive on the loose around here, and that was dangerous to stay around.
Catalan police say the death toll is expected to rise. Ian Woods, Sky News.
Well, in the last few minutes, the Catalan Interior Minister has said that they can confirm that 13 people have been killed and more than 50 injured. Those words from Joaquim Forn, the Catalan Interior Minister. Our senior correspondent, David Bowden, is at the Sky News Centre with the latest.
Neil, we're going to go back to the beginning of this just to remind people who might be just joining us. We're in Barcelona, of course, in the top right-hand corner of Spain. And the incident was first described as a massive crash. That was the first we heard of it late this afternoon. Very quickly, we moved on and were told that it had happened in the Las Ramblas area, this big boulevard that goes through the middle of the city. It's pedestrianised largely, but does have carriageways either side for vehicles, which is clearly how this van got onto it. We had reports of people killed and injured pretty much from the beginning, but at that point still been described as a massive crash. But as we move on, you will see that very, very quickly thereafter, the van stopped near the intersection of the Carrer de l'Hospital, right in the middle of Las Ramblas as we see it there. It was also then that the police started to call it a terror attack. They decided that this was not an accident after all, but this was pre-planned. As we move on, the events unfolded even further. We know that the driver got out of the van and disappeared off on foot, and there were shots heard from La Moquera market not far away. The police then say that they have found a second van that they were looking for all the way up there in a place called Vic, about 40 miles from Barcelona. That, we believe, is a second van that was rented by the man driving the initial van in Barcelona that knocked all those people over. So we have two vans from the same person about 40 miles apart. How they're linked and why he had two vans, we don't know. But Neil, we're getting more flesh now onto the skeleton of this, and we're deciding how this was all planned, that the man who carried out the attack more than likely was acting alone.
David, many thanks. I just want to bring viewers an update reaching us from La Vanguardia newspaper, and I will put this caveat on the top of this information. Some of the information that has been emerging from local media, particularly reports of two individuals being holed up in a restaurant, has proved to be inaccurate. However, La Vanguardia newspaper is reporting that one of those in the van has died in a shootout with police. We have heard from the police themselves, and we can take it pretty much as gospel, that one individual is in custody, having been arrested and is being treated as a terrorist. However, La Vanguardia newspaper is suggesting that another individual who was in that van has died in a shootout with police. We'll try and get some more sourcing for that information in just a second. But we can now bring you some of the pictures from the immediate aftermath of the van attack. And although we have extensively blurred them, please do be warned that they are indeed very graphic. Now, as you can soon see, the people in these pictures are very seriously injured. A lot of people, though, at the scene deciding to stay and help the wounded. However, as you can see, some, understandably enough, wishing to get as far away from the scene of the attack as is possible. And we do have some other pictures now, and again a warning that these are graphic images showing the immediate aftermath of the attack. And we see, well, many more seriously injured individuals, or perhaps even worse. Everyone is surrounded by passers-by. You'll notice not emergency personnel, but just ordinary people stopping to help, others standing
dazed and confused, and you can understand why. Well, joining us in the studio now, Chris Phillips, the former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office. Chris, thanks for staying around, and I know that you have to leave shortly, so I just want to get your thoughts as we appear to be in the end moments of at least the active police operation on the ground. Your thoughts about the way in which this has been handled. I know this is far too early to pass judgment on whether it has worked or not, but clearly there was a plan in place and a plan has been followed by the police.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's not forget, Spanish police are used to dealing with terrorism, so that's always a good start. There is very little that you can do when a vehicle mounts a pavement and runs people over. What you're judged on then, I think, is actually your ability to stop the vehicle, to arrest the suspects, and to bring it all to a halt. And that they appear to have done. So that's great. But we also mustn't jump to any conclusions here that we're hearing that they've been arrested, one's been shot, but actually this could still be ongoing. The fact that two vehicles were rented by the same person at the same time is interesting. And of course, the police will be wanting to follow up that case. And as to whether there's other people that may be involved in a group, or whether this is indeed one person acting or two people acting together.
Is it now, Sim, in your view, is it now a reality of the 21st century that if you are in a major city centre on a busy day, that one has to start giving some thought to the prospect that something like this might happen?
Yeah, and I think there's no secret that this has been happening. It's going to happen in the future. People should be aware and be looking at how they can protect themselves. But it's also interesting, again, that this is another iconic site. This is a really iconic. Everyone that goes to Barcelona will go to this venue. And there's a meaning behind that. That means it involves everyone from all sorts of different nations. There'll be probably injured and dead from lots of different nations. That will mean the press coverage of this will increase across the world. And that is exactly what the terrorists want. And it's very difficult for us to try and stop that, because actually what they're doing is succeeding at the moment. And yes, unfortunately, I think we're going to face this for a few years to come.
But again, many people will assume this is a relatively recent phenomenon, that this is a new tactic, and we're just seeing it increase in frequency. But as Will Geddes was saying to me earlier on, actually, you can go all the way back to the Mumbai hotel attack and find a similar set of circumstances. This is not a new tactic, but it clearly is one that is being used with greater frequency.
It is. And I.S.S. and al-Baghdadi came up with this as to tell his people to go and do this. So that's, I think, is where the acceleration has come from. That's where this has suddenly happened more and more. And of course, it's a really simple thing to do, a kinetic attack with minimal planning. And in fact, we don't know yet, but the terrorist could have made this decision to do this just seconds before he mounted the pavement. And that's almost impossible for the police to stop.
Chris Phillips, we appreciate you staying with us for as long as you possibly could. Thanks for being with us in the studio today. But let's bring in now James Brandon, Director of Geopolitical Intelligence at Sterling Ascent, specialist in political and security risk. James, just your first thoughts on what we have seen develop this afternoon, on the sophistication or otherwise of this latest terrorist attack in Western Europe.
Yeah. Well, I think my first reaction was probably pretty similar to a lot of other people's, which is that this isn't a great surprise. We've seen a series of attacks in Western European major cities over the last couple of years, and particularly vehicle attacks are not particularly surprising as well. We saw the Nice attack, the Berlin attack, and also the London Bridge attack most recently. And one of the striking things is that for 2 decades, really, jihadists have been looking for ways for ordinary, unskilled sympathizers to conduct very impactful attacks with a minimum of training. And what we see now is they found actually the combination that allows them to do that. These vehicle attacks are extremely difficult to stop.
I mean, it is that move from the skilled, jihadi camp trained individual to someone who merely just agrees with an ideology. Of course, we don't know the nationality, we do not know the background of the attackers involved in this particular incident, but certainly, as Chris Phillips was saying just a moment ago, it has been effective in the sense that people have died and people are talking about it.
Yes, exactly. And the challenge for the security forces throughout Western Europe and in America as well is going to be the sheer success of this attack will lead to further attacks. Jihadists will be watching this footage the same as we are, thinking this was a very successful attack, easily carried out, can't be stopped, and let's do more of them. Just in terms
of the way in which the police and one presumes in the margins other security services, other Spanish security services have operated. What do you make of the protocols that they clearly have had in place and have deployed?
Well, all the major police and security forces are ready for attacks like this, and what we saw very quickly, armed police response units deployed on the streets and so on. Very capable, very rapid, but at the end of the day, by the time they're on the streets, a lot of the time the attack has already taken place.
Again, as we look here, it does feel, we have yet to have any confirmation from Catalan police, it does feel that we may have reached the end point of this particular terrorist incident. But as with the attack that took place on London Bridge and Borough Market, one imagines that those responsible for governance in the city of Barcelona will be looking again at their preparedness and what perhaps potentially physical countermeasures that they could put in place to guard against something like this.
Yes, absolutely. There are physical measures governments can put in place, the use of bollards, for example, restrictions on vehicles. But the challenge is anyone can access a vehicle. You can't put bollards down every street, every bridge. Think about zebra crossings, for example. How do you safeguard those? The fact is you can't. And the end to this is going to be not in building more vehicle defenses, but actually discouraging people or preventing people from going down this path in the first place, rather than trying to stop them once they've taken that decision.
And of course, in the aftermath of incidents such as this, when we do see security being beefed up, when we do see greater numbers of police on the streets, there is always a chorus from a certain quarter that suggests that says or suggests that that's it. We have let the terrorists have won now because we're responding directly to their actions.
Yes, well, it's a difficult balance. We obviously have to take action to make sure this attack doesn't, or attacks like this don't recur. But people have a right to carry on their ordinary business without their lives being disrupted as well. So government messaging really needs to try and strike that balance.
James, we will pause there. I'll be back with you in just a second. However, I want to bring in Natasha Drunicki, who's a journalist who lives in Barcelona. Natasha, I hope that you can hear me. I understand that your boy... Oh, hi, you're there. Brilliant. Thank you, Natasha. I understand that your boyfriend was caught up in the action in and around Las Ramblas.
Yes, exactly. My boyfriend Alberto was working at a bar just off Las Ramblas and suddenly heard a huge commotion, a lot of people coming towards him, coming into the bar, just pouring into the bar, at which point he decided to go and see what was happening. An English speaker said to him that he'd seen a van and there was a van coming down the Rambla, and at that point he decided, to shut the shutters and barricade them all in and keep them safe inside.
So Natasha, how close would that bar have been to the incident involving the van?
That was probably about 20 meters away from La Rambla, so the van would have passed around 20 meters away at that point. So it was, really, really horrible. I mean, a lot of people were coming, shouting and screaming when they were running into the bar. They'd obviously seen something awful, and they were really shaken up. So, I mean, I'm still here and I can hear sirens. I'm on the other side of town. It's horrible at the moment.
Well, that was actually what I was going to ask you about next. I mean, what is the feeling? How are people acting in the aftermath of something so horrific taking place just on your doorstep, and not in the outskirts of Barcelona, but in the very heart of it?
Well, Alberto, at the moment, he's barricaded in his house. Thankfully, he lives very close to the bar, and they're all very shaken up, and they all have WhatsApp groups. People who work in bars around the area, they all have WhatsApp groups, and they're all sharing quite graphic images and videos of what they've seen themselves. It's just horrible. Just really, really terrible feeling. But and he's also his neighbours around La Boqueria market were shouting across the terraces to each other to shut the windows because there was apparently someone on the loose around the market. Just a very, very unsafe feeling at the moment. And I was actually on the plane. I just returned on the plane. When I landed, it was the first notification I'd seen at that point as that had happened. So it's awful.
Is this something that you or any of your friends could ever have conceived of taking place in Barcelona?
It's a good question because I've been here since 2008, and I honestly felt that there was something brewing. There's been the last few years tensions were rising a lot with tourism, and we all had been talking before, after each terrorist incident the last couple of years, we've all been talking that, this is bound to happen sooner or later here.
And as it has happened in so many other parts of the world. But one wonders about the character of ordinary residents of Barcelona, whether an incident such as this is likely to change the way that they behave, change the places in which they congregate, or whether or not in defiance it will be business as usual tomorrow morning.
Oh, no, absolutely not. I mean, we're all very excited about going to some big party tonight in one part of town. Everything's been cancelled. But I also think there was a lot of growing hostility towards tourists, and hopefully this will also, I'm sure this will suddenly stimulate a lot of compassion. Again, we're all human, and we all just want to enjoy ourselves, and there's no harm in that at all. But I just really hope that we get through it together.
Natasha, just tell me a little bit more about what you mean when you say that you've experienced growing hostility towards tourists and tourism.
Well, the city isn't really built for the human traffic that it's experiencing at the moment, and it's losing a lot of the character that we'd seen, that we'd experienced when years ago, a decade ago, it was a very beautiful place to be, and now it is very overrun, and it's difficult to walk down the street, and it is quite claustrophobic, especially in the summer months, and it's definitely changed the character of Barcelona. So I can sympathise with people, with the locals getting frustrated. I'm also a local, and I get frustrated myself, but that has absolutely nothing to do with what this horror that's just happened.
Natasha, I hope this isn't me speaking out of turn, but I can hear in your voice that this is clearly shaking you up as it would anyone. And what are your thoughts? I mean, you were describing there, plans for this evening have been cancelled. That is understandable, but when we get past this point, when the police officers are not on the streets in the numbers, when the police hazard tape has been removed, and things at the very least look like they're back to normal, do you suspect that there will be a lasting change to the behaviour of the residents of Barcelona as a result of this?
Yes, I definitely suspect that. I honestly can't really comment. I don't understand. I'm still coming to terms with myself. I don't know how it might affect us, but I know that a lot of visitors will be deterred from coming here, and I know that many locals will I don't know. I hope that many locals will feel a bit more compassionate towards visitors here.
Natasha, Drew, Nikki, well, we wish you and your boyfriend well, to stay safe, and thank you for talking to us on Sky News. We do appreciate it.
Guys, I see that there are some people still on this stream. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. You're watching Fox 5 DC's coverage of Sky News over in London, who's been covering this Barcelona event, this incident, this terrorist attack here today. This incident seems to be sort of slowly coming to a close. We do know that police have said 13 have been killed in this attack, and they do have one person arrested, at least one of the suspects arrested. So that's what we know right now, guys. We've been following it all morning, kind of broke into our daytime live news show here on the YouTube channel. So I want to thank you for watching, guys. This is Fox 5 Live. If you would like to subscribe to our channel, press that button that says subscribe. You can be part of the conversation of our community during our weekday lunch hour show. And so with this, we're going to actually roll out the stream, guys, and close it down. If you want continued coverage of this, be sure to check our website, fox5dc.com. We have that web story. We're going to be updating it as more details and numbers come out. But for now, we know President Trump has condemned this terror attack in Spain, saying be tough and be strong. And we do know that one image of a suspect has been released here and one person is arrested. So lots of information there coming from Sky News in London. We're going to be back tomorrow with the same show in the 11 o'clock hour right here on this channel. So follow us here at Fox 5 DC, guys, for Fox 5 Live, breaking news, live events all weekday long. I'm Molly Nevola, here in the digital studio. With that, guys, we're going to close it out. We'll give you a live shot of the DC U.S. Capitol Dome. We'll see you next time, guys.